Can someone say something for me?
All
Hi,
right.
Chair Harrington, I
Good
can hear you.
evening, commissioners. Chair Harrington, can you hear us? All right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Washington County Board of Commissioners. Vice Chair Rogers, over to you.
Thank you very much. For our audience, we are obviously having a few people are with us tonight. They're behind me on the screen. You can see them as well. There's only two of us that are going to be here tonight. The rest are on screen. Our chair is on the East Coast visiting with her mother. We've got two commissioners who have family members who are ill or they are ill themselves, and they have a great amount of courtesy. They said they won't be here in person. So there'll be two of us, Commissioner Willie and myself, here tonight. For those of you who are here the first time and may not have been with us before, you'll see that we'll call to order the board, and then we'll go through some public communication. It's 10 minutes total at the beginning. That means 2 minutes apiece. That's only 5. I understand Commissioner Willie may make a motion to break that, and that's the way you do it in our formal rules. Then we're going to go through a consent agenda, and then we'll have a hearing, and then we have time at the very end. If 2 minutes is not quite enough, we have some time at the very end of our program, up to 5 minutes per person. So Kevin, would you go ahead and call us into order?
Yes, certainly. The Washington County Board of Commissioners, also meeting as the Board of Directors for Clean Water Services, is now meeting this regular session, March 21st, 2023. Commissioner Fye?
I'm here.
Commissioner Treese?
Here.
Commissioner Willie?
Here.
Vice Chair Rogers?
Here.
Chair Harrington?
Here.
Thank you very much. Again, it's my understanding, Commissioner Willie mentioned that he had invited some folks tonight. There's more than obviously 5 of them who want to speak for 2 minutes. And you have a request that the board expand the 10 minutes to how long?
I would like to ask my fellow commissioners to extend the 10 minutes to allow for the, I believe it is 12 people, to give us a 2-minute communication, which is covering both Forest Grove and another topic. So I would like for us to consider extending the 10-minute time limit.
I cannot see anybody on my screen. I'm not
Can't
sure.
either. We have no
we have
screens.
screens up here as well, so I'm going to turn my back to you. I apologize. Is anybody opposed to that, or can we extend it up? There's 1, 2, 3. Okay, it looks like you're granted your. So, Kevin, would you just expeditiously go through that list, and hopefully what you can do is not give us redundant communication, because in the oral communication we won't correspond with you. We'll simply take that in, and we'll have our staff give us a report later on, and we'll examine the issue. So, Kevin, please.
Yeah, and please, there will be a clock up on the screen, so if you would please be considerate of staying within your 2-minute timeline, that would be great. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Commissioner Willie, so I will just call you up 2 at a time here. So first we have David Witchert and Skip Bueller.
And can we get our screens fixed? Because we can't see. I have to keep turning around to. All this technology. We have screens in front of us as well as computers, and we're trying to see people you're looking at. We can't see unless we turn around.
Go ahead, thank you.
All righty.
Please tell us your name and, address.
Good evening. My name is David Polwickert. I was raised in McMinnville, went to college in Seattle. I've worked in Seattle, New York, Los Angeles, and Portland. I love Forest Grove. My wife and I have been homeowners in historic Old Town for over 14 years. Tonight, I would like to draw your attention to Washington County's potential purchase of property near the intersection of Elm Street and Highway 47 for a proposed homeless pod location and the eventual building site of an affordable housing complex. I'm empathetic to the houselessness crisis and the need for affordable housing, but this location is a poor choice due to its lack of nearby services. The proposed location isn't near mass transit, shopping, or health services, all things that are vital in the transition away from living on the street and are necessary for the successful transition into permanent housing. The Old Town neighborhood in Forest Grove is comprised of large historic homes, parks, and elementary schools, nothing that would aid in the transition from living in a tent to an indoor space that's affordable, warm, and safe. The Elm Street Properties realtor, Melvin Marks, lists another site that would better serve the goal of providing safe, affordable housing. The location is near the intersection of Maple Street and Pacific Avenue and is currently the location of an auto repair shop called Jim's Automotive. This alternate location would better serve the Forest Grove community and the recipients of these services, as it is within walking distance to affordable shopping, restaurants, a TriMet bus line, and more importantly, medical facilities that can care for the needs of this extremely vulnerable population. Housing is but one limb of a very large tree. The roots of that tree are deeply embedded in the addiction treatment, physical and mental health services. Therefore, being close to medical care will greatly help people transitioning out of homelessness. I would like the City of Forest Grove and Washington County to consider the alternate location of Jim's Automotive as a potential location when deciding where to build the transition pods and ultimately the affordable housing that is so desperately needed. Thank you very, very much.
Good timing, thank you. Please, your name and address, please.
Yes, my name's Skip Bueller, and I live on Elm Street in Forest Grove. County Commissioners, thank you for letting me speak. I want to thank the Commissioner Willie for attending our City Council meeting last night and for his thoughtful words and suggestions. As a concerned citizen, I am fully in support of low-income housing, and I know that there's a dire need in this community, as in most towns of comparable size. I commend the commissioners on looking for ways to address the houselessness crisis and to help those in need of shelters. I'm here to express my disbelief and anger, however, at the idea of this pod village being planned at the intersection of Elm Street and Highway 47. Supportive housing is needed, but not at this location. Whoever decided on this as a suitable location, I believe, has never been to Forest Grove or talked to any of the residents living in this section of town. There are none of the amenities mentioned as being reasons for picking this spot within a mile of the planned site. It strikes me as a very reckless decision and will only exacerbate the tensions between the property owners and the houseless, which you should know is already heightened. Currently, there are at least 3 other locations, and Dave mentioned the Jim's Automotive, that are currently for sale and would actually meet the requirements of the county's express, namely transportation, health clinics, food services, and potential jobs. If the model village is the one that exists in Hillsboro next to Winco, Forest Grove is in trouble. The proposed site on Elm Street is neighboring 2 historic districts and numerous historic homes outside of those districts that will be jeopardized by the proposed village and draw more trash and crime to Elm Street. I also want to express my shock and anger when first learning of the plan by the county by the lack of transparency and the fact that nearby residents specifically were not clearly informed of this development until very recently. I feel like we were purposefully kept in the dark. The county has a supposed 6-month waiting period from when this plan began in November, so that time is almost up, giving residents little recourse to fight this proposal.
Skip, thank you. The next 2, Mr. Vice Chair, is Dane Van Kuren and Don Olcon.
Again, your name and address for the record, just please then start.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jane Van Kuren. I live at 22550 Southwest Highland Drive in Sherwood, Oregon. I want to talk to you about rent price hikes at Cannery Row Apartments in Sherwood. I moved to Cannery Row Apartments in April of 2018. We have new owners and property managers, but things are not going well. S.R. Watt Company of California purchased our 2 buildings. In 2019, I contacted Representative Courtney Neron when there was a rent increase, but under different owners and property managers. Her constituent desk was helpful with the name of an attorney who took the case because of my age. In 2023, I contacted Neron's office again for help. I was grateful to read the Sherwood Gazette about how the city of Sherwood advocated for me. Neron said that private corporations that raise rent excessively are not invested in community stability. She is the chief sponsor of Senate Bill 611, which will require newer buildings to align with the 2019 law. I will be speaking in support on March 27th in Salem. I circulated a petition among residents to have a meeting with the owners of Cannery Row, Cushman Wakefield Management, and Mayor Rosner. Rosner said that under state law, unfortunately, there is no direct action that the city can take other than advocacy. He stated when larger corporations backed extensively by equity money by buildings like mine, they may be so out of touch they don't even realize the harm they're doing.
Wrap it up.
Please respond to my request for help. Thank you.
Thank you. Please. If your name and address for the record.
I'm Don O'Nien. My wife and I are residents at 1504 Elm Street in Old Town Forest Grove. I'd like to present my concerns about the homeless pod project on Elm Street. Elm Street is a very busy and multifaceted street. It's one of 3 major tie roads between our 2 major highways, Highway 47 and 8, which is Pacific. As such, it routes very many trucks to and from Central Forest Grove. 18-wheelers, dump trucks, delivery vans, construction vehicles with trailers, as well as cars. It also is a very direct route for fire trucks, police, and ambulances to reach Highway 47 in an emergency. On top of that, there are at least 3 school bus routes and several special needs buses that are daily along Elm Street. Also, it's a central access road between 2 large residential neighborhoods, Southeast Forest Grove and historic Old Town. It has 2 parks, Rogers and a 15th Street baseball diamond park, which is continually used for many purposes other than baseball. It is a major route for walkers, cyclers, school kids, and city bus users. The pods would create a homeless foot traffic highway day and night through the middle of a family-oriented neighborhoods and activities. It would increase police activity with strangers walking through or hiding in the open backyards, alleyways.
Can you wrap it up?
The alleyways which are in old neighborhoods like this. It would complicate business usage in the business located south, on the south end of this project, as well as the north.
Thank you, Don. Your 2 minutes is up.
Thank you. 2 minutes is up.
Next, Mr. Vice Chair, we have Nathan Seeberger and Bianca Bermaro.
My name is Nathan Seeberger, and I live on 14th and Elm Street. I personally have deep personal sympathy for people that suffer from mental illness and substance abuse issues, because I have both in my family. However, there is a time and place to help them, and Elm Street is the wrong place. The location is wrong because it is not safe for the homeless or the residential community that live there. The location is dangerous for the homeless because they will be living next to Highway 47 and train tracks. This is a dangerous area because Highway 47 is heavily traveled, does not have crosswalks or stoplights, does not have overhead lighting at night. Also, they are not located near a grocery store, medical services, bus routes, counseling centers, or places for employment opportunities. It is also potentially dangerous for the community around Elm Street because it is a residential area with homes, apartments, churches, baseball fields, and Rogers Park. Children get on and off buses, play in the park, in their front yards. Also, weddings and funerals take place on Elm Street, as well as get-togethers such as Cinco de Mayo and 4th of July. With the homeless living on Elm Street, it increases the risk of the safety to our children and elderly who we love and protect. Our historic homes we maintain and admire, our property and material possessions we worked hard for, and the churches, which is the heart of our community. This is not an assumption, but a fact from my experience. I previously worked at Winco Foods on TV Highway and Walnut in Hillsboro before, during, and after the construction of the homeless pods this proposition is based off of. During that time, I experienced many things that affected our safety and community in Hillsboro. I experienced one man sitting on the sidewalk, sharpening his machete nearly every day, and one night, he walked into Winco Foods and destroyed merchandise with his machete, then swung it at employees when they asked him to leave. I also saw many people urinate on the building of Winco and litter all over Winco property, even though there was public restrooms and garbage cans in Winco and also in the homeless pod area that taxpayers built for them.
Thank you, Nathan.
Hello, Chair Harrington and all the commissioners of the board. My name is Bianca Bermejo. I am a community health worker with Latino Network, and I live in Washington County. As a community health worker, I provide emergency wraparound support to community members impacted by COVID. We have and continue to see families that have been hit hard by the COVID pandemic. Many of the families that I have worked with lost their jobs, suffered the loss of a loved one, recovered from acute COVID, only to later develop post-COVID symptoms, and now live with chronic health problems. The list goes on. And in this post-pandemic world, the blows continue, with many of my families living paycheck to paycheck and costs of living increasing. Through the development of programs such as the Community Health Response Team at Latino Network, we were able to address some of the gaps in community infrastructure that devastated our community. My work is hands-on and very personal to the families I work with, but the foundation of it is the trust generated in cultural specificity and culturally responsive care. I have seen firsthand how wraparound assistance leaves a lasting impact, supporting the community and maintaining housing, keeping the lights on, feeding their families, or simply lending a friendly ear is no small thing. Moreover, the connections we gain allow for broader support in connecting our families with resources beyond wraparound, such as helping them connect with Spanish-speaking OHP enrollers or helping them connect with low-income safety net programs they may qualify for. I urge Washington County to continue to prioritize community health work as it has become so important in the scope of public health. Please support Latino Network's $600,000 request for community health work and youth and violence prevention projects. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you. Next, we have Juan Moreno and Mufra Alakate. I apologize on the name.
Just as you're coming up for, again, the audience, the 10 minutes at the beginning is just to introduce usually a topic or two. And this is obviously a large topic that Commissioner Willie is introducing us to. So our procedures say the 2 minutes. That's why we do what we do. And that's why we had to exercise a little discretion to move it beyond just 10 minutes. So please, name and address.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Juan Pedro Moreno Olmeda, and I live on 1243 Southeast Fir Grove Loop. And I was born and raised here in Hillsboro, Oregon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on the issue of using ARPA funds in our community. I am speaking today in opposition to our Board of Commissioners using ARPA funds to bolster our county's detention system. While I understand the importance of maintaining a safe and functional jail, I believe there are better ways to use these funds to benefit our community. I would like to remind you that we are still in the midst of a pandemic that has significantly impacted our community. ARPA funds should be used to fight the pandemic and support family businesses struggling with public health and economic impacts right now. We should prioritize reducing the wealth gap, addressing displacement, improvements along TV Highway, providing affordable child care and health care, and support of small businesses that have been hit hard by the pandemic. We should prioritize stopping real suffering happening today over hypothetical impacts of tomorrow. As a community organizer, I have spent most of my time working on engaging community members on a project along TV Highway where we have hosted several community workshops where community members are expressing the needs that I have just mentioned. We need more crosswalks that are lit up, sidewalks on both sides of TV Highway, bus stops that protect us from the elements and that are also accessible to those struggling with mobility. We need financial literacy courses, grants for small businesses, and much, much more. In conclusion, while I understand the need to maintain Washington County's jail's HVAC system, I believe there are better ways to use these funds to benefit our community. The current jail opened 25 years ago in 1998. HVAC systems tend to last an average of 15 to 25 years. I believe these infrastructure changes to the jail should have been done years ago and not at the end of the HVAC system's life. Thank you for your time, and I once again urge the Commission to redirect ARPA funds back into our community the way they were intended to be used. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mufak Al-Kattan. I live in 9487 Southwest the 92nd Avenue, 97223. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on the issue of using ARPA funds in our community. I am speaking today in opposing our board commissioners using ARPA funds to bolster our community detention system. The American Resource Plan Act was intended to be a source of relief for our communities. Instead of using funds from ARPA to build more capacity for incarcerations, our elected leaders should be using those funds to invest in our community programs that repair our city and help us thrive. Housing projects that are existing in Washington County to people who are affected by the pandemic in various ways. Some lost their jobs and lived with no income and faced uncertainty of being evicted from their house. Thus, our community suggests using those funds for rent assistance to people facing eviction and stop homelessness. The funds could be used for shelters to protect homelessness in our community. Thank you for your time, and I once again urge the commissioners to redirect ARPA funds back in our community in the way it was intended. Thank you so much.
All right, next up, we have Jasmine Miranda and Carla Thayer.
Good evening. My name is Jasmine Miranda, and I'm a resident of Beaverton, and I work at Unite Oregon as a community organizer. I'm here to express my thoughts and concerns on the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, and how we can best utilize these funds to support our communities. I do not agree with the board's proposal on dedicating such a large percentage of the funds to improve jail facilities. I find the proposal to be incongruent with the stated purpose of ARPA funds, specifically designated to pandemic recovery, and in the interest of equity, access to the funds should be prioritized for the communities most impacted by COVID-19 pandemic. I was happy to listen to the conversations of the meeting today at 3, and understanding that 4 of the 5 commissioners intend to approve the funding, and I am asking you to reconsider. We have $70 million for this fund, and 47% is intended to be used for the jail facilities, and 7.5 roughly for community services. COVID-19 has been devastating. It has a devastating impact in our society, particularly for marginalized communities who were already facing systemic inequities. While ARPA includes provisions for law enforcement law enforcement funding, I urge you to reconsider prioritizing public health, community resiliency, eviction prevention, and workforce development in your decision-making process. These areas have been severely impacted by the pandemic and need our immediate attention and support. Many community-based organizations have been and are at the forefront protecting our communities and literally saving lives. I know, my time is up. Yeah.
Please.
I'm up.
Yep, your name and.
Hello, my name's Carla Thaler. I live at 2540 12th Avenue in Forest Grove. I'm right on the front line looking in the backyard at the homeless camp that's proposed. We heard about this last September, actually, when the guy that lives in the house that is there now is a disabled Marine and his family. He's lived there for over 10 years, so he's going to be homeless to make way for these other pods to go in to make other people not homeless, which makes no sense to me whatsoever. I live right on the corner of 12th and Filbert, and the substation is kitty corner behind my house, and I've spent the last 5 years cleaning up needle paraphernalia, drugs, condoms, everything you can think of back there. And I take pictures of it, and I take it to the cops, and I take pictures of the people, and I take pictures of their cars and try to help this, and it's slowed down a lot. But I think when if these pods go in a residential neighborhood, I'm terrified. I'm terrified for my home value, and I'm terrified for the neighbors that live around me and all their little kids, because I just was in Portland today, and my God, the tents and the garbage and the crap all over the city. It's like, I don't want that for my town. We've lived there for almost 25 years, and I'm just terrified for this. So I really hope that you will look at other sites instead of this site, because it just doesn't seem appropriate for them or for us. Thank you for your time.
Next up, Commissioners, we have George Cushing and Sherry Pilt.
You want him to go first? You were up there for.
Great. Thank you for your time. My name is George Cushing, 2532 12th Avenue. I'm talking about the homeless pods in Forest Grove. And also, I'm going to give you my cell phone, counselors, because I've got a challenge for you coming up. My cell is 503-312-7154. I'm on the Forest Grove Historic Landmarks Board. Have been there for 15 years or something. I don't know, just a long time. And there are 4 historical districts in Forest Grove. 2 of them are adjoining, the Clark District and the Walker-Naylor District. I've dropped off for your clerk here brochures of the walking districts of Forest Grove, of the 2 in question, the Clark and Walker-Naylor. I challenge you to go on a walk out there. And if you're really not very familiar with Forest Grove and what the town is all about, I gave you my phone number. Contact me. I'll get you a personal tour of the downtown Forest Grove so you can see why we love it so much. And so this is such an important issue. There's also, as you're walking around through the downtown, through the Forest Grove district, those Walker, Naylor, and Clark, notice the ball field and think about the little kids out there playing baseball in the evenings with the homeless people, 200 or 300 people walking down the street, sitting down, watching them play their baseball games. Or over at Anna and Abby's play yard, which is the story behind it will rip your heart out if you're not familiar with that. But it's designed just for little children. We sympathize with the issue. I personally have contacted Councilor Ewing at Forest Grove and told her, get me on the list to start volunteering to be a person on the homeless issue.
You could wrap it up, please.
But keep in mind, This is a long way for those people to push their shopping carts, 9 blocks up to the street, and then another 3 or 4 blocks to Safeway. Thank you very much for your kind consideration of this issue. Thank you. And your work, and letting us stay late. You guys stay late. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
I'm Sherry Pitt. I live at 16th and Elm Street, and I want to thank you guys for giving us the extra time for comments. Last night, I estimate there were between 60 and 70 residents that attended the Forest Grove City Council meeting. All were unhappy about the homeless camps in town and the proposed pod settlement on Elm Street. All were wondering how we got there, and all were asking it to stop. I support what my neighbors said and share their opposition to the plan to put a pod camp on Elm Street. What we were told was that this is a Washington County issue and that this commission could answer our questions. What I'd like to hear from this commission, or what I want from this commission, is transparency. Who on this commission was involved in making this decision? Were consultants utilized, and if so, who? What were the criteria used to evaluate potential sites? What other sites were considered? What is it about the Elm Street site that makes it the top choice? I also want to know what the longer-term plans are. What is the estimated opening date for the pod community? How long is it expected to operate? Will the pods be replaced by permanent structures? And if so, what and when? What are the best ways for concerned Forest Grove residents to stay abreast of the plan as this progresses? You can take a walk around any neighborhood in Forest Grove, not just Old Town, and you'll see well-maintained homes, properties, parks, and families. You'll see neighborhoods that people care about and care for. I am willing for my tax dollars to go towards supporting those less fortunate than me, but not at the price of threatening the neighborhoods and families that make up the community of Forest Grove. Thank you.
All right. Next, Commissioners, we have Travis Kurtz and Dale Feek.
Please go ahead and identify yourself and address and all that.
Hi, my name is Travis Kurtz. I live at 1909 Elm Street in Forest Grove, which is in Historic Town. I've been here for 7 years and enjoyed my life in this area tremendously. I'm speaking because I'm extremely concerned about the idea of placing homeless pods on Elm and 47 in historic Old Town. This location is nowhere near any resources that would benefit the vulnerable homeless population to change their life in any meaningful way. They're desperately in need of mental, behavioral, and rehabilitation services. They should be in close proximity to all of these services, but this is not the case. This is not close to any of them. What it is surrounded by is residential homes, small local businesses, parks, churches, a nature preserve known as Fernhill Wetlands, and other treasures to our town, such as the beautiful 1.5-mile Old Town Loop, which is a 1 to 2 mile walk from Elm and 47. You'll also be inserting this vulnerable population into a completely different culture. This is not fair to them or to the people of historical Old Town. I'm concerned about crime ramping up, safety and well-being, the value of homes in our area, our local businesses, and the upkeep of our beautiful neighborhood. Naturally, I can't really speak for the homeless population, but from what I've seen in homeless camps, they don't seem to share the same interests and values. Common interests are what connect people and build community. When those interests aren't aligned, people can go into fight or flight mode, and I could see you creating a culture war in Old Town, and that's something no one in Forest Grove is prepared for. There are better locations out there for them. They should be next to services they need, and in my opinion, they should not be next to a bunch of people's houses. I do believe they should have a place to go. They can go for refuge, but I also feel it could make more sense to have them be in a more remote location where services could go to them. But if that is not possible, then you should consider alternate locations that are closer to services for them. Elm and 47 is not that. Thank you.
Vice Chair Ori Rogers and Commissioners, and District 4 Commissioner Jerry Willey, who sounds like you're representing the Commissioner for the people from Forest Grove. I've lived in Forest Grove since 1966. I love the city. I sent you emails about the semiconductor industry and the emergency planning and community right to know law. That's what I want to emphasize tonight. The legislator needs to provide the money to fund DEQ so that the Cleaner Air Oregon regulations can be implemented timely and well. The semiconductor industry uses hundreds of very toxic, corrosive, and flammable chemicals. The DEQ permits air and water emissions that allow the semiconductor industry to emit a certain amount of those toxic substances into our common airshed and watershed. Sometimes the semiconductor industry makes mistakes and emits more than their permits allow. Sometimes those permits are not adequate to protect the environment and public health. We need very strong regulatory agency to monitor and regulate their actions. In 2015, Washington County, under the leadership of Scott Porter, Director of Emergency Management Cooperative, started working on getting a countywide emergency planning committee, it's called LEPC, established. In 2022, the countywide LEPC finally became operational with bylaws, elected officers. It is supported by the state fire marshal. Intel and a few other industries in Washington County are classified as extremely hazardous facilities. They are required to not only have site-specific emergency plans, around 40 such facilities in Washington County will have them, but are required to have a risk management plan on file in the Federal Reading Room in Seattle. Those describe the worst-case scenarios. I'm not going to continue with that. In email to you, I said there are 2 workshops being planned. I gave you the list for that, and also there's a state workshop in Redmond, and I'm going to go to that because I'm a member of the local emergency planning committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. So is there any other members in the auditorium that wish to provide public comment for up to 2 minutes? Give me just a second to stand up. Come forward. And then, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, we have
Last call, because we've
last
been way
call.
over, yeah.
And then,
Way over.
okay, come up too, ma'am. And then we'll have 2 online ones, and then that will be the end of
So
public.
these will be the 2, the final in the room, and then we have 2 online. Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Piwi Runjinda. I'm here today representing myself as a community member. I live in Washington County in Beaverton. I'm representing our community on the issue of ARPA funds allocation. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today and would like to echo the importance of aligning the funds allocation with ARPA values, particularly the guiding theme of resilience. As a member of the community, I urge the commissioners to prioritize investments that have a lasting impact on our community's well-being. However, I noticed during the work session this afternoon that there was no housing assistance programs mentioned on the potential investment areas slides. As rent hikes and an increase in the cost of living disproportionately affect vulnerable individuals, such as those on fixed income, or who rely on assistance programs, we fear that many of our community may be displaced or lose their shelter as a result. As a community organizer myself, working with marginalized communities, I have heard firsthand the fears and worries of those affected by the current housing situation. Some have shared with me that they feel the government doesn't care and wants them to die. This is unacceptable and emphasizes the urgent need for housing assistance programs to be included in the ARPA funds allocation. In conclusion, I urge the commissioners to carefully review the work plan to ensure that it truly serves the needs of our community. We need to prioritize investments that will have the greatest impact on our community's resilience and well-being, including housing assistance programs. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you will take our concerns into consideration.
Hello there, Commissioners. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and speak to you tonight. My name is Lynn Jacobs, and I am a resident of 7960 Northwest Dick Road in Helvetia. I have been active in protecting farmland over the past 20 years. I have co-owned and co-operated a CSA farm feeding over 400 individuals and 100 families. Protecting the future of our ability to grow food in Washington County is something that is very near and dear to my heart, as are many of the other topics that are here tonight, which I was not aware you were going to be hearing about. I have also spent over 25 years in this community working as a family physician, serving the people that we've been talking about here tonight. As a farmer who lives and farms a quarter of a mile from West Union, the northern border of the urban growth boundary, I am well aware of what commuter traffic does to the ability of a farmer to do their work. I am opposed to ordinances that would include road extensions onto farmland at Cornelius Pass and at Tile Flat Road. I am here in opposition. Thank you so much, because I did want to ask, how many people are here to oppose?
Wait a second, that's a...
That's not
public
allowed,
hearing.
sorry.
That's a public hearing tonight.
No problem, no problem.
You're way off, yeah. These
Okay.
are non-public hearing items.
Excellent. I'm opposed to Ordinance 882, the extension of tile flat roads, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Thank you.
Now we have two online, right?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, the two online that we have are Greg Nelson and Luke Layfield. So, Mr. Nelson, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Greg Nelson. I'm a resident of unincorporated Washington County at 409 Southwest 140th in Beaverton, and a trustee at Christ United Methodist Church, one of the partners in the Opal Apartments project on Saltzman Road. I'm speaking to you today in support of the action items before you this evening, F1 and F2, related to affordable housing. Christ United Methodist is honored to be a partner along with Washington County, Metro, and Home First to provide affordable, stable, long-term housing and services to seniors in the county. We know that these types of projects affect the livability of the community for both the residents and the neighborhood. While county staff and partners at Home First are more qualified to answer the technical questions about these requests for funding, I can share with you the value of this project to Washington County and to the Cedar Mill neighborhood. These new residents will support the retail area of Saltzman and Cornell intersection and benefit from the nearby Metro transit options. Affordable housing for seniors is a key part of a diverse community, and the church looks forward to welcoming these new neighbors. Every construction project can expect some surprises. Unfortunately, this project got a couple of big ones. As you will have read in the staff reports, breaking ground on the project unearthed the combination of an underground spring and contaminated soil. Neither of these had been identified in the preliminary studies. While the work to correct these issues is now done and efforts are being made to cover the costs incurred, resolving them is a benefit to the entire community and the watershed, not just to that particular property. Contaminated soil has now been removed and does not risk entering the groundwater or surface water system via the previously unknown underground spring feeding a nearby creek. Your support for these agenda items will ensure the stable funding and long-term viability of this project and demonstrate the effectiveness of private-public partnerships for meeting the social needs of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The last person we had sign up online was Luke Layfield. Luke, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you. I am Luke Liefeld. I live at 224 Northwest Sundown Way in unincorporated Washington County. I wanted to log in and talk about the Northwest Cornell Road project between Cedar Hills Boulevard and 102nd. Much needed transportation improvement project that is in construction. I want to extend my thanks and gratitude to Mr. Russell Knoble and Mr. Andy Morris, both working for Capital Project Services, for their timely responses to coming out to the project and rectifying some accessibility issues that I had raised concerns with. I ask for support from the board in working with County Administrator, I'm going to say her last name wrong, I'm assuming, Anji, for county records requests that I have submitted in regards to public safety issues noted during the construction project on Northwest Cornell Road, and the release of those records, asking for your support in releasing those records with no cost, for a couple of reasons. One, I believe that it is in the public benefit for those records to be released and to be examined. And also the amount of time to collect the data should be minimal and is well under the 16 or 8 staff hours that was put into the estimate, in my humble opinion. That is all that I have to say. Thank you very much for your good service, and thank goodness for some sunshine.
Thank you, Kevin. That concludes everyone online as well. Well, thank you. This is a little extraordinary. We normally only do 10 minutes because we have obviously a full agenda. We appreciate everyone coming out tonight on a variety of issues, and we didn't respond to you because that's not what we do under the 10-minute section. We simply take input, and then we'll get back staff reports and move forward with what we hear. So with that in mind, we will move on then to what we call our consent agenda. This is a series of items. There happen to be 13 of them tonight that we pass with one motion, unless a commissioner or more than one commissioner wants one or more withdrawn. So I would entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So move.
Is a motion?
Second.
I think that, Pam, was that you? Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Sometimes you can't hear exactly right. So we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion whatsoever? All in favor, raise your right hand. I think I see them all. 5-0. Okay, we passed our consent agenda. The next item of business are boards and commissions. There's announcement of vacancies. And Tanya, do you have that in front of you? I've got to switch and toggle, or I can't see them.
Yes, I can help
you.
out, Vice Chair Rogers. So this evening, we're announcing vacancies to authorize the recruitment of applicants through May 2nd, 2023, or until all vacancies are filled. For the members of the public, I will briefly walk through the list of vacancies. Aging and Veteran Services Advisory Council, 10 positions are available now and 3 positions after June 2023. The Audit Committee, 2 positions available now and 2 after June 30th, 2023. Behavioral Health Council, 2 positions now and 8 after March 31st, 2023. Board of Property Tax Appeals, 2 positions available now and 4 after June 30th, 2023. Civil Service position, 1 position available now and 3 after August 31st. Columbia Pacific Economic Development District, also known as COLPAC, 2 positions available now. Development Disabilities Council, 4 positions available. Fair Board, 3 positions. Fairground Advisory Committee, 2 positions available now. Metzger Park Local Improvement District Advisory Board, 7 positions available now and 2 after June. Northwest Area Commission on Transportation, 1 position available now. Park and Recreation Advisory Board, 3 positions available now and 3 after June 30th. Rainbow Lane Special District Board, 1 position now. Regional Arts and Culture Council, 3 positions available now. These are great opportunities for the community to get involved in county boards and commissions.
Thank you so much for doing that. For those of you who don't know who I just called on, she's our CEO of the county, so she would be well acquainted with that. The next item is in fact, the next 2 items are appointments. One is to the Housing Advisory Committee. I'll take that motion separately, and then one to appoint members to the Homeless Plan Advisory Committee. We've all looked at that and had pre-approval. Is there a motion? Or Comey, do you want to say something on those? You certainly can. Comey Calamari, he's the head of our Housing Authority Board.
Good evening, Vice Chair Rogers and Commissioners. My name is Comey Calamari. I'm the Housing Director. So this action item was presented to you in work session March 7th, and we are requesting 6 people be appointed to the Housing Advisory Committee. And they are Ryan Kane for Real Estate and Development and Construction, Haley Purdy, Design Architect and Engineer profession, David Bachman, Property Management profession, Dina Castrijon, Social Service, Bruce Dickinson, Elderly Representative, and Fernando Lira, Finance Professional. David Bachman is currently serving and is renewing his term.
Thank you very much. Unless there's some question, is there a motion then to approve these applicants?
So move.
Was that I think I saw Nafisa move, so I guess that's the second. Thank you. So there's a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Any opposed?
Vice Chair, I believe the chair's sound went out. I'm not sure if she has her sound working again. So maybe I'll keep talking to see if her sound is working, but she had just sent me a quick message.
Oh, okay. We're not hearing.
Yeah, she was a little slow on the approval, which I know she would, so.
Yeah, Catherine, we can't hear you at all. We have to give her kudos. She's on the East Coast, so it's 10:30 where she's at right now. Are you opposed at all?
No, she voted for.
She voted for? All right. I think we're.
But you're on mute, Chair Harrington. The sign for mute is on.
Yeah. She's okay? Are you okay? No? Well, we have 4 anyway. Yeah. Can you hear us? She can't.
She can't hear us.
She can't hear us. We voted 4 you're the only one. You're fine? All right.
can hear now.
Perfect. There we go. All right. So we have a 5-0 on the Housing Authority Committee member appointments. Then we have the Homeless Advisory Committee. Call me if you'd like to do
Yes.
that.
So the Homeless Plan Advisory Committee is 17 members, of which 14 represent affiliations that inform the guidance on the supportive services and also the continuum of care. We are seeking reappointment of 4 HPAC, Homeless Plan Advisory Committee members. 2 members will seek their 3rd terms, and 2 will seek their 2nd terms on the HPAC. They are Rachel Duke, with Community Partners for Affordable Housing, Elena Ewing, Forest Grove City Councilor, Kem Shiwi, Director of Community Action, and Albert Roque with the Sheriff's Office.
Those are the recommended. We, again, covered those in a previous work session, so we're familiar.
Move approval, Harrington. Oh,
Ah,
I can't.
That's all right. You're there. Good. Is there a second?
Second, Treese.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor? It looks like it's unanimous. Thank you, Comey.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Well, enjoy your night. All right, that brings us to a public hearing, and it's going to consider Engrossed Ordinance 882, an ordinance amending the transportation system plan element of the comprehensive plan relating to the extension of Tile Flat Road. So I'll open that particular hearing and staff report, please.
Mr. Vice Chair, the motion to read the ordinance by title only.
Oh, that's right, we might pass it tonight. We may not. All right, motion to read by title only?
So move.
I'm seeing online, there's got to be another one. If not, I will do it. Okay, second for a reading by...
Second.
Okay, thank you. Second by reading by title only. Please.
All those in favor, say.
He will do it, and then we'll do it. Go ahead and read.
Need to vote.
You need to vote.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah,
Aye.
okay, fine.
Engrossed Ordinance Number 882, an ordinance amending the transportation system plan element of the comprehensive plan relating to the extension of Tile Flat Road.
Boy, that was complicated, wasn't it? All right, please. And if you would address, we got at 5:30 today a letter from the city of Tigard, which is a good partner of ours, and I just was reading it, so maybe in your presentation you could tell us about that as well.
We will address that, yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, members of the Board of Commissioners. My name is Erin Wardell. I'm the Planning and Development Services Manager, and with me is Stephen Roberts, Director of Land Use and Transportation. We have a brief staff report for you this evening. There we go. This is your fourth public hearing on Engrossed Ordinance number 882. The board heard this ordinance on January 24th, and at that time, you continued the hearing to tonight in order to allow consideration of the proposed Metro Urban Growth Boundary land exchange for Tigard's River Terrace 2.0. Metro did approve that land exchange as expected on February 2nd. This slide contains a history of your prior hearings on this ordinance. The Planning Commission held their first hearing on December 15th of 2021. The board held their first hearing on January 18th of 2022. The board directed engrossment on March 1st of 22. The first engrossment hearing was July 26th. The second was August 2nd. The third was January 24th, and we're back tonight with the fourth. I wanted to talk a little bit about the urban growth boundary land exchange process. This is something that happened after we filed the ordinance, and it literally has changed the ground underneath it because we thought that we were proposing an extension on rural land, and very rapidly most of that land is being brought into the urban growth boundary. In 2021, Tigard proposed an urban growth boundary expansion for the land that they call River Terrace 2.0. Metro's chief operating officer recommended that rather than expand the urban growth boundary, they conduct a land exchange process. That is allowed for in statute. It's not something that had been done in the Metro area previously. Metro Council then approved that land exchange on February 2nd of this year. We expect the Department of Land Conservation and Development to acknowledge that land swap later this year, sometime in the summer timeframe. It hasn't happened yet, so the land is a little bit in limbo right now. We expect that acknowledgement to take place, but as of today, it is still rural. A little bit more about River Terrace 2.0. The city of Tigard is working on comprehensive planning for this area. It is about 500 acres. They expect there will be about 4,500 homes when this area is finished with development. Their concept plan for the area includes some town center and commercial areas, but it's primarily intended for residential use. The planning process did feature extensive collaboration with major property owners and community members as a part of Tigard's planning. They also created a detailed series of implementation and funding plans for the area. The Tile Flat Road extension and the Mountainside Road extension are both referenced in Washington County's Urban Planning Area Agreement, which was adopted by Ordinance number 879 and was signed by the Tigard City Council. The Tile Flat Road extension was initially identified during the planning process for Beaverton's South Cooper Mountain area. You can see it on this graphic above. We conducted further analysis of this extension in the Cooper Mountain Transportation Study and the Urban Reserves Transportation Study. It is included in Tigard's River Terrace 2.0 concept plan. They are now moving into the comprehensive planning stage, and as I mentioned, it is referenced in our Urban Planning Area Agreement. Given the urban growth boundary amendment, staff are recommending changes to Engrossed Ordinance number 882. Because the land will no longer be rural shortly, we no longer need to take an exception to Oregon State Planning Statute rules for most of the area, which is the area you can see in the slide here in blue, because that area will all be coming into the urban growth boundary. Instead, staff recommend that we propose refinement areas rather than specific lines or corridors in our transportation system plan. The benefit of refinement areas is that they do not require the exceptions finding, even within the rural area. It also allows quite a bit of flexibility for coordination with City of Tigard. Refinement areas are essentially study areas. It means we've identified a need for something, but we don't know exactly what it looks like and we don't know exactly where it needs to go. As a part of Tigard's detailed comprehensive planning and development of a funding strategy, they'll have the opportunity to identify where they need to put their infrastructure and how they're going to fund it. The clicker is a little bit slow tonight. There we go, refinement areas. So in recommending this engrossment, we developed the concept of 3 different refinement areas. And the purpose of 3 refinement areas is to reflect the differences in the types of land that we've identified here. So the first refinement area would cover the rural undesignated parcel of land that's south of Shoals Ferry Road at the intersection with Tile Flat Road. This area is not a part of the land swap. It's not being brought into the urban growth boundary now. It's a part of our 50-year land supply, so at some point in the future, it likely will, but that won't happen in the next probably 5 years. The land in the middle, or the the refinement area you see in the middle, is the Tile Flat Road Mountainside Way Extension Refinement Area. That is Tigard's comprehensive planning area for River Terrace 2.0. This is the area we'll be coordinating with the City of Tigard on planning for and making sure that they're providing adequate transportation infrastructure in their planning work. This refinement area, again, would give them maximum flexibility for locating the infrastructure as long as they are serving the needs of the community with transportation. And then the third refinement area is the Mountainside Way extension. This was filed in the original ordinance as a refinement area, so this isn't different from what we initially filed. This is another area that is primarily rural undesignated. So again, very long-range planning, identifying the need for further study, but we don't know exactly what a transportation facility would look like or where it would go, and City of Tigard has not started planning for that area yet. So we have a number of refinement areas identified in our transportation system plan today. They are locations where the need, mode, function, and general alignment of a transportation facility has not yet been determined, but we know there's a need for a transportation solution. So there would be a need for multimodal improvements identified. The need for multimodal improvements have been identified through multiple studies. We'll also continue to work with the City of Tigard on this. The refinement area allows us to do that additional refinement and evaluation and work closely with the City of Tigard. We've heard a lot of comments from the community throughout the process of the previous studies that led to this ordinance and then through the ordinance hearings process. Most of those concerns are summarized in the slide here. Many of the concerns we've heard about this ordinance have to do with the land becoming urban and being brought into the urban growth boundary. When we initially identified the need for this transportation facility, we were considering it as a potential rural facility, and we identified the need for it there. With the area coming into the urban growth boundary, there's even more of a need for infrastructure to serve what will likely be, within 5 years, an urban area. We also heard a lot of community comments about whether or not the road was needed, the environmental impacts of new roads, timing for funding, and when we would actually be able to build the road, and then questions about the process of taking an exception to statewide rules. I do now want to address the letter received from the City of Tigard. So my understanding is that testimony was received from the City of Tigard at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Staff received that at about 5:30 this afternoon. We haven't really had time to digest it. So what we would like to ask now is that we have a recommendation above, which we put on the slide, which asked for the board to direct engrossment, to change what we had filed to the 3 refinement areas, and then come back for engrossment hearings on May 23rd and June 6th. Given the timeliness of when we received that letter from the City of Tigard, I'd like to propose an alternative recommendation, which is to give staff time to coordinate with our partners at the City of Tigard and work with them on providing infrastructure for this area. In light of that, I would ask the board to continue this hearing again to October 24th. That gives time for DLCD to formally acknowledge the land swap, meaning the land will be urban, most of the land will be urban, and we'll know for sure what findings we need. It will also give us time to negotiate with Tigard and figure out their infrastructure needs and their funding plan. They, at that time, will have negotiated their IGA with Metro for planning money, and we'll have an idea of what their scope will be. They may very well be underway in their comprehensive planning work at that time. We have already started those conversations with Tigard staff. We also know they're very interested in bringing this area online as fast as possible. They've already approached us about an early annexation agreement and how they can start annexing the area as soon as possible. So we'd really like to be able to support the city in their very aggressive timeline and be able to partner with them. Having this additional time to coordinate with them and visit their testimony from this evening would be greatly appreciated by staff. And that concludes our presentation.
Before we take public testimony, just to see if there's any questions, and I can see that,
Chair Harrington?
very good.
Thank you. I'm not sure I heard the verbal new proposal correctly from Ms. Wardell. I think I heard you say you were asking us tonight to direct engrossment, but continue to, and I wrote down October.
The thinking on proposing October is that if we go to June, which actually was our original proposal, the board will be really busy with budget, and we also aren't entirely sure that DLCD will be done with the acknowledgement. So we really just want to have a reality lens on our timing and how long these processes take, and give us enough time to really work with the city of Tigard on their concerns. So we saw that testimony at 5:30, so we were really quickly thinking about timelines and what made sense. I actually think that it would make the most sense for the board to continue this ordinance and not direct the engrossment at this time. The reason for that is that through our conversations with Tigard, we may identify something else that needs to be engrossed in this ordinance. We also may come back to you in October and say, we have reached agreement with City of Tigard. They will take care of this through their comprehensive plan, and at this time we recommend the board reject this ordinance. And we will work with City of Tigard and adopt what they're adopting in their comprehensive plan at a later date.
So I have a question, and I think it might be to our legal staff. Having looked at slide 3 and the process that we've gone through of all these continuances, pending this, pending that, and the passage of time, and this I just looked, thank you for pointing out the City of Tigard email because I didn't recognize it. But I did just take a look at it, and it seems totally in line with their October 10th, 2022 letter that I've been carrying around all this time. They attached it as well. And I'm really wondering if there's another option of basically sending this back to the Planning Commission. Legally, Mr. Carr and other expert legal beagles, I don't know what I might be suggesting, or not necessarily making a motion yet, but I'm wondering, can we do that, or do we have to reject this thing first, or what? And I can't see any of our legal beagles.
Tom is here. Would you mind to answer that, please?
Yeah, so to be clear, Chair, what you'd want to do, your plan would be to reject the ordinance and send it back to go to the Planning Commission from the beginning, or ask for their recommendation?
Yes, that latter part.
So what you could do is continue it as Ms. Wardell suggests and direct staff to seek the Planning Commission's input before bringing it back to you. They would not have a formal approval role, but they certainly could provide comment.
This has gone on way too long, and this whole UGB in who said what with City of Tigard, compared to December 15th of 2021, it's like, send the whole thing back.
Well, the only way I could see doing that would be to reject, to make a motion to reject the ordinance, and then let the process start again.
Okay, I see. All right.
If you want a formal role from the Planning Commission.
Answered for the time being. Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to comment to that. I am not a fan of starting over again. We've got a significant amount of staff time invested in this already. We don't need to start it over again, I think, to get a refresh look at this. So I think we go along with the staff recommendation that we postpone. And I'm going to have you recite that in a minute when we're ready to make a motion, but I'm certainly not in favor of rejecting this and starting over. It's a waste of staff time.
Is there, let's see, Commissioner Reese and Mr. Fye, any comments at this point? Any questions before we?
Yes, Vice Chair Rogers, can you hear me?
Yes,
You
we
can
can.
hear, okay. Aaron and Steve and I had I feel like you all answered my questions about this ordinance, and in addition to the time you spent, I feel like you've been answering to our questions and providing all kinds of briefings. I had a recent meeting with two constituents, I'll just say. We also got a letter from them, but one of the I have questions basically, and I just wanted to, I don't think I knew the answers at that time, but I just thought I would ask you here. The concern, the folks I talked to was, how do we ensure or minimize the wildlife fragmentations? So I don't know how you would address that coming back. And then the other was Clean Water Services Regional Stormwater Strategy, which I found out from them that started the public comment period. So how do we incorporate, or is there a way to incorporate what comes out of that strategy? And then the other question, and I'm so sorry I'm sort of dumping all this on you. I guess I could have paused and one question at a time. Would you like me to pause and see those two questions, or do you want, it's just one last question that has to do with clean water services?
Sure, go ahead. Floor is yours.
The UGB exchange needs to be in compliance with future clean water services studies. So how do we make sure it's congruent with the comprehensive plan? And I guess more directly, the question was, how do we add language to force review after the ordinance is published and adopted, or the study is published and adopted? So so I think if you could comment, way to curb those, or a way to provide answers to those questions, will be great.
Sure. So as far as the question about wildlife crossings or even mitigating environmental impacts of transportation facilities, I brought back up the slide that shows Tigard's River Terrace 2.0 area and their planning for it. We have the adopted urban planning area agreement with the city of Tigard, and that gives Tigard planning authority over the area that we're showing here on this slide. Through the comprehensive planning work that City of Tigard will be starting shortly, they'll have the opportunity to consider factors like wildlife crossing and like stormwater treatment and mitigation for their environmental impacts. And so that's the really detailed work that happens as a part of comprehensive planning when an urban growth boundary expansion, or in this case, a land swap, is taking place. So the county will be participating with the City of Tigard on their technical advisory committees, and will have an opportunity to weigh in through the process that way. Similarly, we work really closely with our partners at Clean Water Services. We've been working with them on the regional stormwater strategy that they've been doing in the area over on the other side of Roy Rogers Road, where you see the southern part of River Terrace 2.0. We're working in coordination with Clean Water Services, City of Tigard, and King City to develop a comprehensive regional strategy for that area. So I think that there's a really good opportunity for us to continue that conversation with them and take the lessons learned from that work and apply it to this area. Did that answer all the questions? Did I lose part of it?
No, you did great. Wonderful. Thank you, Aaron. And I appreciate you. I think folks that pose those questions are listening, and I'm comfortable with those answers, and I will be voting in favor of your recommendations.
My questions before we take the public testimony. I've continued to stress you can't bring this sort of number of units into the urban growth boundary without an adequate transportation system. And that shouldn't be just incumbent upon us, that's incumbent upon the city of Tigard. And so where that alignment is, that doesn't strike me as being something we can't figure out, with acceptable to the community, acceptable to the city and to us. So I appreciated Tigard's letter. I think we need time, and that's going to be my question, to go back to Tigard and say, how do you resolve this? I mean, we have two facilities there, Shoals Ferry being one of them, Roy Rogers the other. They're only entering and exiting off of Roy Rogers. I don't see a plan to take traffic anywhere else that they have formally said we're going to build and we will pay for. And so I know they were anxious, everybody was anxious to bring all this in. Have they definitively said what their plan is or what their suggestion is, so that it's not just a county problem, it's theirs, they're getting all those units? Have they came up with a solution? Have they proposed a solution? I mean, one way in, one way out is not a safety. I mean, this is a big safety issue. You can't have that. So whether it's this, Mountainside, which I used to call 175th, that's where 175th used to be, whether it's there, whether you come up some other way, whether you eventually go to tile flat in 50 years or whatever you say, I mean, that's not an issue to me right now. My issue is how do you get to the north? And has Tigard ever proposed a solution that will work with the infrastructure that we have?
I think that the concept plan that you see on the screen here shows a solution to that. And so the continued conversations we'd be having with the city of Tigard as they move into their comprehensive planning is how are you going to provide this connectivity to the transportation system within your urban growth boundary expansion area, and how are you going to fund it? And transportation is only part of the infrastructure. It's very expensive to do greenfield urban development, but when you bring 4,500 plus homes online, we need to be able to provide that essential infrastructure. So that's the conversation we'll be having with City of Tigard over the next several months.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Treese had her hand out.
Yes. Commissioner Treese?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ordell, for this presentation. This has been a long process. It's been a frustrating process. I'm glad we got the communication from the city of Tigard. I'm a bit frustrated that it happened at such the 11th hour here, but I do believe that we need to make sure that we're exploring every opportunity with the city of Tigard to make sure that we've got the right system in place. So I'll be interested to hear public testimony and decide at our vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, I see your hands up. Again, I commend you. What is it, like almost 11 there? You're doing well. We can't hear you.
Sorry, I have to muffle my speaker. I had my headphones on so my hotel mates wouldn't have to hear all this at this hour. I'll just ask my question after the public hearing. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. All right. Again, this is a 2-minute. That's what we have on public hearings, and we'll take testimony. And
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'll call you up 2 at a time. First up, Andy Hogan, and then Ashley Riverman.
again, name and address for the record, please. Yeah.
Hello, Andy Haugen, 23290 Southwest Farmington Road, Beaverton, Oregon, 97007. I'd like to state that I'm very against Ordinance 882. The county claims this exemption and refinement area is needed to help the flow of traffic and support new communities like River Terrace 2.0. However, in the much-discussed memo from the City of Tigard by Senior Planner Schuler Warren dated October 2022, who is responsible for the River Terrace community, they state repeatedly they do not need a new road to be built for their community and already have collector roads in place. They say it goes against the goals of the county and spirit of the state. They were also concerned about the cost, alignment, and positive impact it would even have. I emailed a copy of this to the commissioners, but I have a highlighted copy here if anybody would like one. Other reasons to vote no include current roads like Tile Flat are receiving no or limited additional improvements, and why build a new road if current ones are not going to be improved? Businesses like Lone Owl Farms and Hammaker Wines will be ruined and have been there for decades, and they are testimonies of what the county promotes of urban and rural working together. For all three routes of the proposed extension for the economic, social, environmental, and energy were slightly negative or neutral in the Board of Commissioners report. This alone shows the road will have little positive impact to the wider society and is a good enough reason not to adopt Ordinance 882. The Board of Commissioners were also unable to come out for a site visit to see what would be impacted, and just because some county planners have worked hard on this does not mean it should pass either. It is claimed this road will be built in the future, but gives no guarantee work will not start tomorrow if this passes, giving landowners no time to prepare. This ordinance engrossment refinement area has changed multiple times, demonstrating the county does not know what it needs or wants. I will end with this quote from Teddy Roosevelt, where he states, "I recognize the right and duty of this generation to develop and use its natural resources of our land, but I do not recognize the right to waste them or rob them by wasteful use the generations that come after us." Thank you.
Please.
Hello, my name is Ashley Reverman, 15385 Southwest Cabernet Drive, Tigard, Oregon, 97224. I have lived in Western Washington County my entire life, and I am against Ordinance 882. As a child, I vividly recall the beautiful and necessary agriculture that surrounded my home. Cow farms, apple orchards, and berry farms with bounty and beauty that spoke of tradition, legacy, and standard. As an adult, I am frightened to see these attributes carelessly tossed to the wayside in favor of unnecessary progress. Oregon is the home to a legacy of agriculture that dates back hundreds of years. As a teacher, I'm constantly battling many different forms of progress, from social media to the new AI chatbot. I worry for the future and mental health of our youth if we allow the beauty that surrounds Western Washington County to continue to fall prey and victim to progress. We need our farmlands. We need the legacy of properties such as Lone Owl Farms to continue for the sake of our future generations. Should Ordinance 882 pass, I fear what other forms of advancement will be on the horizon. The experience of visiting these farmlands are captured moments in time that can be and have been life-changing and must be protected. We must understand, protect, and respect the lands, families, legacies, and traditions that have stood the test of time. They continue to contribute to produce cultivation, the empowerment of family time, healthy habits, and the mental stability of our youth. Oregon's population is expanding, with families from neighboring states choosing our county for the very reasons I have outlined. But this does not mean we have the right or need to decimate and destroy the beauty to accommodate them. This road expansion is not the simple taking of unoccupied land, but the disturbance of homes, families, animals, crops that live and thrive in our beautiful county. Factually, and according to the County Board of Commissioners staff report, there are no transit services planned for this collector road. Additionally, a petition has been signed by hundreds in opposition of this ordinance. And if you recall, Ordinance 883 failed for many of the same concerns being brought forth today. Thank you so much for your time.
Next, we have Richard Ponzi and Lily Stone.
Name and address for the record, as if I didn't know.
My name is Richard Ponzi. I own property at the end of Vandermoos Road with my family. We've been there since 1970. We established a vineyard there, and we're in our third generation of ownership. We also have a vineyard or an accumulation of vineyards of over 100 acres, so we're considered farmers, I hope. We lived in the area, as I mentioned, at the end of Vandermoos Road, which is adjacent to the woodlands that the supposed bypass or extension will travel through. And I think it's important that you know that in our explorations of that woodlands, it was a major activity of our family for the last 50 years. It's a place to go where there's animals, there's streams, and woodlands that you can, of all different category. The important thing for me today to discuss with you is the movement of the urban growth boundary. I was at this hearings room some 50 years ago, and we were developing the comprehensive plan use for land use. There were things that had to be considered in that comprehensive plan, and pretty much the same things that are considered today, I think. You want to find places or provide home sites. You want to have...
Fortunately, you got to wrap her up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We've known each other a long time.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things that happened over the 50 years, but one of the major things that has happened, that boundary lasted for some 40 years. And then a few years ago, there was this concept of land swap, and it was initiated, as I understand it, from the legislature. And I think today, if you drive down Souls Ferry Road, that is the result of that land swap and lack of planning. And the reason I'm here today is to caution, really, to make snap judgments in terms of the future and why we have to go through farmland again and woodlands. And I think we have to be very careful and make a good judgment in terms of the environment and our lives. And I did want to say one thing. That decision, I'm sorry for going on, but I don't know if we'll have another chance.
Fortunately, we've got rules of procedure, and we've got...
I know.
We've been here with some other things, too.
Well, one last statement. I think the decisions made 50 years ago has shown that an industry was created because of some of those decisions. And that some of those meetings, people were arguing hillside properties as being secondary farmland. Today, those hillsides are filled with vineyards and not home sites. So we have to look to the future. And one last thing, and it was just pointed out to me, Time Magazine. Okay, Time Magazine has selected the Willamette Valley of one of 50 sites in the world. We never imagined that 50 years ago.
Good.
Thank you.
Good to see you again. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Name and address, and we got to keep...
Totally, yeah, I got it down.
Please, thank you.
Lily Stone, 14930 Southwest Vandermost Road. I hope you had the chance to read my written testimony that I submitted along with family photos. I'm here today to urge you not to engross Ordinance 882 and reject it. My family, the Grabhorn family, has been farming on Vandermost Road for over 100 years. I'm a fifth-generation Oregonian, and I am the fourth generation to live on Vandermost Road. It is incredibly frustrating to me that the proposal to study this road is still ongoing, especially when the city of Tigard issued a memo back in October saying that it's not needed, that their mountainside collector is enough to service their subdivisions. I also want to note that Ordinance 883 was rejected for a lot of the same reasons that myself and my neighbors are going to talk to you about today. As I hope you are aware by now, this road crosses not only agricultural land, but also an absolutely beautiful stream with beaver habitats. There is a limited amount of agricultural land and streams in Washington County. I understand we've spent a lot of staff time on this proposal, but we can spend more staff time on proposals to find roads and alternatives. We cannot make more agricultural land and more natural streams with beaver habitats. We can already see that this road is going to be a very expensive plan to implement if you have to build a bridge to cross this stream. I've heard numbers quoted in excess of $50 million. Perhaps something else that you all could support would be the Mountainside Road Collector and divert that $50 million of spend to safety on Tile Flat Road or TV Highway or Highway 219. When contemplating your vote, please consider your campaign promises to this county. Please vote no to engross this ordinance and reject it outright. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Andrea D'Amico and John Stone.
Hi, my name's Andrea D'Amico, and I'm going to try to make this as short as possible, considering Chair Harrington is back east, and your day has probably gone very long. I sent you an email with some pictures in it. I've forwarded, or he took up the hard copies there. They kind of go in order from showing you a picture of Vandermost Road to taking you down the stream and then across the street showing you the farmland and also spotting out a piebald deer, which is kind of rare in the area, and we have 2 in our neighborhood. So with that being said, I'll let you guys go over the pictures at another time so we can roll along. I want to go over 3 points. In 2022, Oregon forest laws changed, saying that the buffer zone for streams from 75 foot to 150 feet to a stream where fish are present. There are 2 streams that cut through the area that you guys have that go down where the proposed road is supposed to go. One is a fish-bearing stream. The other, I've never seen a fish in there. So you've got 2 creeks to cross. The non-bearing stream would be a 75-foot buffer, and the fish-bearing stream would be 150. The second, as you can see in all those pictures, towards the end, I've got a bunch of beaver dams and things like that, or not things like that, just beaver dams. To remove a dam, it must be permitted by Oregon Fish and Wildlife. It's also a known fact that if you remove a dam, the beavers just come back sometimes overnight and just rebuild it. Beavers mate for life, and so they live as a family. So in putting in the proposed road, you would endanger the beaver habitat. My third point is I feel the road is very, very redundant. From Tile Flat going down Shoals Ferry to Roy Roger, it's 0.9 of a mile. It seems that there's been a lot of effort, time, and money concentrated on this 0.9 of a mile that I don't think of it as an extension. I think of it as a cut through. I think it will propose a safety issue to people that think that if they take this cut through, they can avoid the traffic and speed through it, endangering wildlife. You know, there's lots of deer out there. I mean, I can go on about all the animals. There's no point. And
Time is up.
oh, shoot, sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We need to
Go.
Thank you.
John Stone, 14930 Southwest Vandermost Road, right at the end. I understand that you all have a very tough job, and as part of that job, you have to be very mindful of what you spend the county's money on. In one of the hearings, Nafisi asked if a bridge could be built to protect the environment. I appreciate her concerns there. However, during a follow-up question by Roy Rogers, we learned that it could cost over $50 million for a bridge to go over a stream. However, as you've heard, and as you can see in the pictures provided, that stream is a series of ponds, and there is another stream on the other side of it. I can't imagine if one little stream costs $50 million to cross, how much multiple streams and ponds would cost to bridge over. Let alone the fact that there is wetlands in the area that could cause additional issues. With viable alternatives in Mountainside Way Collector, I am urging you to protect our environment, community, local businesses by voting no on Engrossing Ordinance 882. Nafisi, you ran on growing small businesses and empowering people to create them. I ask that you stick to your campaign promises and vote no tonight on 882 and save Lone Owl Tree Farm. Further, as a public health expert, I know you're aware of the negative downhill effects of pollution, and I am asking you today, as someone who drinks the water downhill from the proposed road to protect the drinking water from my family that we all depend on. Roy Rogers, I'm also asking you to stick to your campaign promises to protect livability of Washington County by ensuring we have clean water and air for future generations. As a resident of your district, I'm asking you to defend our streams and wetlands and provide the necessary biofiltration for the water I drink every day. And as a small business owner, I'm asking you to be mindful of the business that would be destroyed by this road. Catherine, you also put that you wanted to help small businesses, but something else you said in the brief would be that to find smart, balanced transportation options. Because of this, and your stated care for the community and the environment, I hope I can depend on you to vote no as well. Jerry, I was kind of disappointed. I thought you were going to be a shoo-in for this to vote no, because you put in yours, in your brief, that you wanted to protect water quality in Washington County. Since this road is going directly over a stream, ponds, and wetlands that provide necessary biofiltration for the water I drink, I was hoping that I could count on you to vote no on this engrossed ordinance.
You're over a minute. We need to cut it, please. We understand. Thank you. All right, next speaker.
Next up, we have Bill Revenue and Beverly Revenue. Did I butcher those names? You still in the audience? Bill and Beverly? Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Come on up.
That's right.
That's one. Is there another one, Kevin?
My name is Bill Reverman, and I live at 15385 Southwest Cabernet Drive, just up from Roy Rogers Road. And over the last few years, I've watched the development on your road namesake absolutely just get out of control as far as I'm concerned in terms of traffic and all the other things that have happened to the environment around there. So you can understand that as we're talking about further urban growth, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the traffic impact. I'm concerned about what's happening to the farmland. On the way down here tonight, Commissioner Rogers, we passed vineyards, on Tile Flat, and passed farms and everything else. And I hate to see that go away. I do. I built my home in 1991, and all there was filbert orchards and alfalfa fields all around us. And that was the attraction that brought us to Washington County and to that area. So there's been some really, really good arguments tonight about the environmental impact, about the economic impact. And I'm thinking here that the city of Tigard, as they tried to incorporate my part of Bull Mountain Road, they failed. We voted it down, and it was more, we felt like it was a revenue tax grab more than anything else, because they really couldn't promise any parks or anything else. There's really no room. So I'm just here in support of these folks who would like to see their environment preserved, and certainly the wetlands and the wildlife and everything else. There's other areas I'm sure that can be developed, but this has been pristine. And I watched Mountainside High School come up, and I watched all the development that's going around that. It's only started to begin. So I'm hoping that this commission will take into consideration the impact that this could have on our rural communities in that area. Thank you.
Thank you for being a longtime resident. I also live in that area, which you may or may not know, and so I've seen it all too.
I thought the road was named after my favorite cowboy, but now I'm glad it was named after you.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Please.
I'm Beverly Reverman. I also live at 15385 Southwest Cabernet Drive in Tigard. I want to just really I really want you to really think strongly about yielding to 4,500 new homes. The homes that are being built are not even affordable for most people who live in that area, okay? And the fact that you're promised roads, that Tigard's promising you roads, I would be really, I don't trust that Tigard will do for you what they're saying they're going to do. I think we need to leave our farmlands alone. We need to be able to give these back to the generations that will come after us, and that oftentimes where man treads, we leave destruction. We need to leave what makes us unique and what makes us successful as Oregonians to those people who know best how to use the land and to protect the land and to protect our wildlife. I know that progress sounds titillating and exciting, but it really isn't the answer to all of our problems. The answer to our problems is to slow it down a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, and have some respect for the beauty that is Oregon. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Elizabeth Lex Hogan and Miki Blizzard.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Luxhaugen, 23290 Southwest Farmington Road, Beaverton 97007. And I have to say that I'm a little shocked that I'm here again. Over the years, we have been here many times trying to protect the urban growth boundary and our farm property. Some of you I even remember from back at the Metro meetings. And our land is always being threatened by a landfill, by several UGB extensions, a pipeline, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's always something that I like to try and impress upon those who decide that open land is not there for urban properties to use for their benefit. It's not in the rural property, we're always outnumbered. We cannot compete with the other voices that are out there. And we're always relying on you to protect our land and our investments and the law. It's not a question of not in our backyard. It is a question of not disassembling our land use laws to serve the needs that you see. There's a petition here for you that has more than 500 signatures against this ordinance. And in a recent article from Sunday in the Oregonian, they did a poll of people across the state, and 71% of them said they did not want the UGB expanded or altered. So we'd like to think that as citizens, even though this is very far in, we'd like to think that we're being heard.
It's time.
Thank you.
Next, a name from the past, so we haven't seen each other in a while.
Well, the
Good to see
past
you.
is the present.
Yeah.
And here we are again.
Here we are again.
Chair Harrington, Commissioners, thank you for this opportunity to testify this evening on Ordinance 82. My name is Miki Blizzard. I reside at 16815 Southwest Pleasant Valley Road in Beaverton, which is actually unincorporated Washington County. And I really wanted to mention that I really appreciate so many members of our community coming here and testifying about important issues of farmland, environmental impacts, and traffic. Obviously, we need more housing in the metropolitan area, but Ordinance 882, which would extend Tile Flat Road, is not the way to serve this growth. When this extension was originally proposed a number of years ago, we all knew that it would encourage more driving, and that's what I would like to speak with you about today. Because in the 1990s, the LUTRAC study demonstrated the value of creating a transportation system that decreased rather than increased automobile travel. And you probably are aware that just yesterday, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its latest report that said the Earth is likely to cross a critical threshold for global warming within the next decade. Time's a-wasting, folks. What we need to do is take the time to think about what we need to do to provide a transportation system that does not increase automobile travel, but rather decrease it. There's a comprehensive planning process that the city of Tigard is going through with their new development, and that the county should be partners in that so that we move back from the same old thinking that we have used for decades now, thinking that a new road or an expanded roadway system is going to solve our transportation problems. It will not. You know, we could be back here another 5 years, weather permitting, to discuss the same issue. But now we have an opportunity to back off of this usual thinking and to say, how are we going to come up with a solution that meets our needs without increasing automobile travel and greenhouse gas emissions? So I urge you to take this opportunity and vote this ordinance down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lynn Jacobs and Tanya Steele.
Please, take a seat, either, yeah. You want her to go first? Okay. Now you're on the right ordinance.
So sorry, I already gave my piece, but I just wanted to say that, again, from Helvetia area, in support of farmland and in support of all these amazing people who do this work and are here to protect the land. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming up again. The reason we had to cut you off earlier is because we have a public ordinance time period, and we need that on the record. And so we don't take things that are on our action items as part of our communication earlier. So please.
Hello, good evening. My name is Tanya Steele. I'm at 18900 Southwest Shoals Ferry Road in Beaverton. I am Lone Owl Farm. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you today. This is my youngest child. I am the solo parent of 4 children. I purchased this farm in 2011 when she was 4 months old. We have spent the last 11 years rehabbing this farm, trying to turn it in, bring it back to life, turn it into something. We have thousands and thousands of trees planted there. We have thousands of people that come to our farm every year. We sell thousands of trees. We have thousands of people, hundreds and hundreds of families that come. They go and cut trees. They make memories. It's something beautiful. It's something I want to save. She is the next generation that we need to save this for. If this road goes through, 65% of my farm is no longer farmable, at least. And I don't know how it will impact even the rest of it. On this map, I'm not in the urban growth boundary. I am a rural piece of property. I do not fit in any of this. You would still need some kind of exemption to be able to put this road through my property. I'm not a part of this. I am the non-color, or I am the blue space. And if you put a road through, it cannot be a farm. So you either have to put me in there or leave me out, and please find a different way for the road to go. Again, I have 4 children. One of my children is on the autism spectrum. This was the first job he ever had, working on this farm. My daughter has worked on this farm. She just started. It's something for the next generation that we need to save. So I ask you to please do not pass this ordinance. Please do not engross this land. Let's find another solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Was there any other members in the auditorium that did not get a chance to sign up that wants to provide 2 minutes of public testimony on this public hearing? Not seeing anyone move forward, so we will move to our online portion. Oh.
How many do we have online, Kevin?
3.
3? Okay.
Oh, do you want me to continue?
Last call for the audience.
Oh, wait,
Last, and then we have 3 online.
My name is Fawn Hosey, and I live at 13515 Northwest Jackson Quarry Road. I am here to oppose Ordinance 882. I don't want to repeat the very good points that all the others have made. I do want to remind you that all of you are representing the rural areas of Washington County too, not just the urban areas and the urban unincorporated and the cities and so forth. We need you to protect our farmland. We need you to protect our wildlife habitats. We need you to recognize that although we have hundreds of thousands of people in our urban area, you're here to represent the rural areas too. Please vote no on 882 tonight. Let Tigard take the next steps. They're already prepared to do that. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin. Now the online, please.
Yes, with the three online. First up is Carrie Parmentier. Carrie, can you hear us?
I can, thank you, Clark Moss. Good evening, Kerry Parmentier, 22030 Southwest Ridge Road, Beaverton, 97078. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak and congratulate the people who spoke ahead of me. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there tonight in person. I would urge you to please vote against Ordinance 882 and not let it continue on. We go right back to December 2021 when the Planning Commission turned us down. It was, I think, a majority, very clear majority. We are asking for consistency, and I think Commissioner Rogers, you brought up a great point when I was talking to you about Ordinance 883, and again tonight, the 175th opportunity still exists, and the City of Tigard has been very clear with its October 2022 memo that they do not want this extension. We are the guardians of this land. You need to understand that we need to protect it, and that includes all of us and your roles. I thought it was very good. They talked about your promises when you went to get elected and what you were talking about then. Please think deeply and clearly about these. The staff have not done a bad job. No one is saying that, but we need to look for different opportunities, and it's not been a waste of your time, which I think is a very interesting way of looking about why it is not a waste of time. It has been exploratory. Now it's time to stop the exploring and to close this ordinance down and let the City of Tigard move forward with what they're looking at and protect the treasure of rural land and these folks that have got homes and businesses over there. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin. Next person.
Next, we have Fran Warren. Fran, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Fran Warren. I live at 835 Southwest Touchmark Way in Portland is the mailing address, but I'm unincorporated Washington County. I'm here to represent the 175th Neighborhood Association. That maybe people remember that. And I have been working on this project for 8 years. I learned the hard lessons, the state and metro UGB decisions, which our commissioners must live with. So this Ordinance 882 is not about the urban growth boundary expansion. The conversation is specifically about providing transportation for the 60,000 people that are being added to the high growth community area with no new road that is northbound of Shoals Ferry. There is no safe all-weather road, flat road, available to these 60,000 new residents. And we're not talking about future residents. We already have 3,700 homes that are in South Cooper Mountain, which is the city of Beaverton. We have Mid Cooper Mountain that's coming in. We have Tigard. We have South Hillsboro. I don't remember the exact numbers at this moment. I apologize, but it is a huge number of residents that are already been moved in. So we're talking about the here and now and not the future. It's not about whether we build a road and the development will come. There are three main points, and I'm sorry I'm going to run out of time, but the bottom line is that the mobility that is happening right now is creating additional greenhouse gases already. And the other part of it is we just saw with the recent floods, the snow, that 175th is just a horrendous road, even with the snow zone designation that thankfully the commissioners have done. So I've written for many years about this. We really need, I'm a pragmatic environmentalist. I will continue to monitor this to ensure that we have habitat connectivity and corridors, you know me. And I just feel that it's really important for the thousands and thousands of people. And we've got to figure out a strategy in the future. I know I'm running out of time, but we've got to have targets for farmland, rural, and urban areas so our planners can stick to anticipating how do we protect this farmland in the future? How do we protect the significant natural resources in the future? What is our target? And you commissioners are the ones who need to set those targets. Is it going to be an urban county?
Thank you, Fran.
Yep, I'm done.
Thank you, Fran.
The last person we have, commissioners, is Sam Diaz. Sam, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, Chair Harrington and County Commissioners Phi, Rogers, Treese, and Willie. First, I'm sending healing and positive energy. If zooming in when you're not feeling well or tending to family in a different time zone isn't gold standard public service, I don't know what is. So thank you so much. For the record, my name is Sam Diaz, Executive Director for 1000 Friends of Oregon. 1000 Friends listens to and works with communities to piece together the policies, investments, and public support to meet pressing needs and lay the groundwork for continued success. The city's land use decisions offer a window into the transportation needs of an area, the present and future needs. If the land use decision supports medium to high density residential with commercial uses mixed in, the transportation needs will probably look similar to that of a Renko station. Sidewalks, bike lanes, and bike parking, lighting and safety crossings, transit, and perhaps a daily use parking lot to travel into the hub. If the land use decision supports farmland and wildlife, the transportation needs will probably look similar to Helvetia Road. Wide roads and slow speed limits for farm equipment, and transit, bicycling, pedestrian, and roads serving commuters are not only unnecessary, but can bring about congestion, accidents, and fatalities. Here, the land use decision, Metro's first ever UGB swap, that the city of Tigard requested fits more along the lines of the first land use scenario, at least 4,500 homes with an anticipated 6,500 residents. The River Terrace concept includes walking and rolling trails, bike paths, parks, nature preserves, and shopping areas. And the city of Tigard submitted testimony to Metro Council as part of this decision, indicating that the proposed road extension is not necessary and raises concerns. This commission has waited for Metro's UGB swap decision to hear more about this road extension. I appreciate the due diligence you all are taking. The results are clear. There is no need to support the proposed road extension from the proposed River Terrace 2.0. Please reject the ordinance. The county is fortunate to have dedicated, talented staff. They're creative, they're hardworking, and the county is fortunate to have a planning commission and hundreds of residents that have steered the limited dollars and staff time back to address the list of priorities identified in the 2019 Transportation and the 2021 Transit System Plan.
Thank you, Sam. And that concludes the public hearing. Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate that. So for our board discussion, who would like to start?
Chair Harrington.
I see Catherine there. What do we got?
I'd be happy to
We have
start.
staff coming up to the table right now. You can't see them, but they're there. Please. Yeah.
Sure, I'd be happy to start. I will not be supporting continuing on with ordinance number 882. I have referred back to the documentation in our packet as to the reason why this ordinance is before us. I do not support extending Tile Flat Road to the south of Shoals Ferry Road. I believe that the city of Tigard has shown us that the River Terrace 2.0 area can be served without extending over to the west of that area. Additionally, my comments for rejecting this are familiar to this board, though you may not have them at the tip of your memory banks. At the time of ordinance 883, which I also rejected, I spoke about protecting rural land outside of urban reserves. This is exactly that very same case. Such lands as this undesignated area should not be broadly impinged on. And given the continuous feedback from the city of Tigard, we need to be hands-off on areas that are not in urban reserves. Uh, originally tonight, my interest in sending this back to the Planning Commission was related to their vote 2-4, such that the ordinance failed to have their recommendation in coming to us. I would also remind the board that they took action on an area for a 185th extension, an area that is, in fact, within the urban growth boundary and has been for quite some time. The majority rejected that work, which taught me a significant lesson on the perceived value of rural perceived land, even though it's not actually rural zoned land. The land that we're talking about now is in fact rural zone land and is very much in rural character. And the pictures I thought from the written testimony we were provided were very enlightening given some of the comments that were made tonight. So I will be voting to reject this ordinance and continuing any work on it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Treese or Commissioner Fry, comments? Don't have to if you don't want to, but I don't see anybody rising to, okay. Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, I have a couple questions of staff. So the refinement areas, the areas that are going to be brought into the urban growth boundary by the city of Tigard and developed, how many rooftops are we talking about?
They're estimating 4,500 for all of River Terrace 2.0, which is two separate pieces. Actually, if we could bring up the presentation, we can show that graphic again.
Yeah, I'm looking at slide 9, but I can't tell from that.
I can tell you. It's here.
Okay.
There we go. So 4,500 units between both areas.
Okay, so 4,500, probably 9,000 cars. And directly across Roy Rogers Road, just probably, I don't know, north of Bull Mountain Road or maybe north and south. I drove down Roy Rogers Road this last weekend. All of that area to the east is being developed. Another several thousand households. And we're expecting all of those people to drive down Roy Rogers Road, which is now being developed into a 5-lane major arterial. Is that correct?
Correct.
If you go a little bit further south, you'll come upon, I believe it's called Old Sherwood Road, a very curvy road that goes from Roy Rogers and winds over and ends up at Shoals. That's the road I take because I avoid Roy Rogers Road and Shoals Ferry at where the high school is. I avoid that because of that. And there's 9 or 10 or 12,000 cars expected in the next 5 or 10 years to take that road. I don't think it's feasible that we would allow 4,500 rooftops without having some arterial connectivity. Now, I think Tile Flat Road extension through that farm, I think we can probably mitigate that. We don't have to go direct and through that farm and over the rural road that Chair Harrington was just talking about. I think we have the responsibility to continue this to allow further study when we know more about what the city of Tigard's going to do and what options we have that maybe aren't even demonstrated in this presentation. Then if we want to reject it in October, we can do that. But I think we owe you, the staff, and everyone else the opportunity to find maybe better options, but still keep our options open. And Miki, I couldn't disagree with you, or couldn't agree with you more. I'd love to have a transportation program that does exactly what you want. But it's going to be years and years and years. You don't get to respond back. Sorry, this is a one-way conversation. It's going to be a long time, Miki. I mean, look at, if nothing else, the Southwest Corridor. So we can look about that for our grandkids' future and their grandkids. But for right now, I really think we need to continue this ordinance and allow future study on this. And like I said, if it doesn't work, then we reject it. But we need to give it more study. Thank you.
I think the only ones besides myself we haven't heard from Pam and Fisa. I don't see you raising your hand, so
Yeah, I can chime in, Vice Chair.
please, thank you.
You can hear me, right?
Yep, we can.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Welly as somebody who sounded the alarm for Ordinance 883, and that was, I know tonight it was mentioned a few times from constituents that it's similar. I feel like the more we dig into Ordinance 882, I've been seeing hopeful that some of the environmental issues that are important to my values are being addressed. And also that this is in the best interest of Washington County, including all residents. But I'm in agreement with Commissioner Willie that I think, and I would like to ask for the constituents that came in tonight and really dedicated their time to make their case. I just want you to know I heard you, and you're not falling on deaf ear. I'm really listening and paying attention to your concerns, but I ask for your patience. I think the staff are on the right track here. At least I'm convinced they're on the right track here, or I should say Aaron and the staff did a good job of convincing me, I should say. But I also hear you, and I ask that let's give it more time. And if the concerns are not being addressed, I'd be happy to do the same thing I did with Ordinance 883. But it's a little bit different the way I see it and the way it's being presented and the way it's you're seeing it. So let's give it a little bit more time and come back. And if the alarms are still raised, you know, I think we want to do right by our constituents. This is the era of doing right by the people and listening to the people and hearing the people. You know, it's one thing to listen, but to hear it's really important. So I just want to say that to you all. I hear you and I'm listening to you, but I'm going to be voting in support of the staff's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner 5. Commissioner Treese, I think you raised your hand. Yeah.
Yes, I did. Can you hear me, Roy?
We can.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank the people who provided testimony tonight, and I want to thank our staff. I'm going to be following the staff's recommendation for continuance, and I'm looking forward to working with the city of, our staff working with the city of Tigard. So thank you.
Thank you. I guess the only one left for remarks is me. First of all, I don't like the name of the ordinance, tile flat extension. I wish you didn't say that. My interest is, and we're talking about the blue area and affecting that. Hopefully you can find some alternative that doesn't even get there. That would be my preference. But you can't have a huge area come in like is being asked for without an adequate system. And the problem that transportation system, the problem that we have is that every road around that is a county responsibility. This isn't an ask that we made to bring in all of this land. I mean, this isn't a county ask, it's a city ask. City of Tigard are good people. They've made a reasonable ask. They got what they wanted, but I don't know how the transportation system is going to work. And so I've continued to say, and I like what was being proposed by staff, I continued to say, how do you go north? How do you get to Shoals Ferry? And maybe it's some sort of a little larger road that goes up to what was just, I guess, trying to see what they call it, the Mountain Side Way. It used to be 175th. Maybe that's the alternative, but are they going to have in their comprehensive plan the money to expand that intersection? Are they going to facilitate a large enough road to do that? And don't forget, I think many of you don't, that just south where you go Bull Mountain Road down here and you see some kind of an open area, the city of King City has asked to bring their city entirely to that. And so we haven't even looked at that number of homes. It's all going to go down in what's a white area just south of Bull Mountain Road. So if you're looking at it, not as you and I see Dick and I have known each other a long time, Miki and I have known each other a long time, Fran, who was on the phone. I'm looking out well beyond my lifetime and all of yours and saying, what's the solution? What is that solution? And I think Tigard and reasonable people can look and say what alternative it is. Am I convinced that Tile Flat Road is the extension? No. Am I convinced that we need to participate with our friends and allies in Tigard, the city of, and say, what are you going to do to upsize, rather than say, I don't think we need any big facility? Well, you're putting 4,500 homes in. I mean, and you're putting them onto roads that this county has to maintain. So, I mean, they're not unreasonable. They're good people. We need to sit down with them and say, what is your solution to that? What are you going to do when you permit all of this? And are you going to ask, I'd be curious, and I'm sure they're not going to tell me, but what is their plans for this, what they call the west below that? I live in an unincorporated area right not too far from there, and I don't know what their next ask is going to be. That's going to expand, and how's that all going to look? So I'm going to support going ahead and continuing this, not because I necessarily like the Tile Flat Road. I think that's a terrible ordinance name. It should have been alternatives for this area, and take a look at them, and that would be just one. So I've said all I need to say. I see that our chair has her hand up again, and so I'd be happy to obviously call upon her, and she'll make closing remarks, and then we'll get on with the vote.
Thank you, Vice Chair Rogers. I was a little reticent to raise my hand again because I made my remarks on my position for this ordinance, but I have heard the remarks from all of my colleagues, and the additional remarks I would like to make are not in direct response to that, but to rather ask Mr. Carr to make sure a couple of things. One is, while we were having our discussion or listening to the public hearing, I did go back to all of the ordinance material that is in this packet. And like it or not, this ordinance is exactly about extending Tile Flat Road. Through the course of the discussion here, I appreciate the concerns that have been echoed around the capacity of Roy Rogers Road, of the fact that the River Terrace area has been brought in. I'm pointing to my screen, so I realize you can't see that. But it's the one with the refinement areas on it. I don't know the slide number. Anyway, I heard mention of the future development of the King City UGB expansion area. All good thoughts. But with that, Mr. Carr, and also for our LUT subject matter experts, I don't know that the findings currently for Ordinance 882 make reference to all of that information. So I just want to make sure it's pretty clear from the comments that the board majority will be moving forward with Ordinance 882 into the future. And sure, I'll learn from that as well, but I want to make sure that staff has received direction from us to accommodate those concerns as expressed. Otherwise, it's just hot air from the board and won't get necessarily addressed from staff. So, you know, we can't just say we're voting to continue the work because we have these concerns when the work itself doesn't address those concerns. So, Mr. Carr, I don't know if you have anything to say with regard to with our LUT experts, what all of this discussion means with regard to the next steps, and the recommendation that Ms. Wardell articulated many minutes ago. Thank you. But otherwise, it's time to move on with a motion and a vote.
I agree. Thank you. Tom?
I don't have much to add. The findings were adopted, I believe, a while ago, and they were not adopted.
No, not yet.
No, so the findings will follow when we adopt the final ordinance. They usually come as an action item, so they're not inconsistent.
Correct.
I thought there may have been earlier findings, but the findings will reflect whatever happens in the final ordinance.
I know the chair probably can't hear all of that because of the acoustics in it. Aaron?
No, I
Could you?
could, but the
Okay.
findings don't talk about King City, I don't believe, or at least the material that's in our packet.
Yeah, I raised that, and it doesn't. You're absolutely right. It's a good point.
So we can work on putting together a technical background information about all of the growth happening in this area. The Urban Reserves Transportation Study considered the cumulative impact of all of this proposed growth around the edge of Washington County. So we do have that technical information, and we can add it to the materials when we come back before you. The findings that we initially prepared for this ordinance had to do with the rural exception corridor, because at the time we proposed the ordinance, the land affected was rural, and as of today it is as well, but we expect that in a couple of months when DLCD acknowledges the land swap, the land will then become urban, with the exception of the blue area on the slide there between Tile Flat Road and Vandermost Road, because that is rural undesignated. So staff at this time are no longer proposing the exception corridor for that land. We would instead propose a refinement area. But this is all information we would bring back to you in October after further conversations with City of Tigard and make a recommendation at that time.
So if I could request, Aaron, if you would recite the motion that I need to make so that I don't mess it up. So tell me what that would.
Move to continue the hearing to October 24th.
So move.
Did I get that right?
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any discussion? I think we've probably had it all. Anything? Okay, nobody else is saying anything. All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed? It passes 4-1. So we'll see you back in October, and hopefully you'll have a chance to talk to Tigard. And
Plenty of work between now and then, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, boy, I timed out, so I need to get back into the, you got yours up?
You're into the action items right here.
Sorry, I timed out because I wasn't paying any attention, so I was talking. Oh, yeah, that's a final endorsement approval.
You want me to read that?
Sure, please. Let me get back in.
Next item, item F1 is an action item. Recommend to Metro a final endorsement approval of up to $749,000 in additional Metro housing bond funds for Opal Apartments. And Comey, you're back.
Yes, good evening, Vice Chair Rogers and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Comey Calavo, Housing Director. I'm joined by my colleague, project managing the apartments. So we are here for two separate actions on the Opal Apartments. It was formerly Tigard's.
Ladies and gentlemen, could you please go out of the auditorium? Vaughn?
We're trying to hear.
Yeah,
Please.
could you please go outside before you have your conversation? Thank you. Sorry, Comey, go ahead.
Right, so we are here for two separate actions on the Opal Apartment. It was formerly Salzman Road Senior Housing. Unusual because typically during the due diligence period before closing, we do soil tests, water, a lot of tests, geotech. This particular project came to you May last year, May 2022, for final approval for Metro bonds. And they encountered soil problems and also diesel oil contamination. Total of 2.3 million in unforeseen challenges. Thankfully, the project was awarded below the average of Metro dollars in terms of Metro bond funds. Typical project is getting about 128, 500, and they only got 500,000 apiece. So why the Salzman Road senior housing is important? It gives us a geographic dispersal. It was in Cedar Mill area. It also be serving seniors, not a lot of senior housing out there, and they are focusing on the LGBTQ population for services. So we decided to assist with the situation they encountered. I think construction started June 2022, and then these problems came up in September after closing, which out of the 10 deals we are working on, none of them has encountered this magnitude of challenges. So the first slide, are we on the second slide? Yeah. So yeah, the Opal apartments, they changed the name after a community engagement. Opal is a crystal, and if you reflect the colors, you see a vibrant array of colors. So anyhow, it's a community process, so that's the new name. 54 units of senior housing, mostly one bedrooms. We have 24 project-based vouchers. So that will be serving extremely low income persons. So that's the model of the building when it's complete that you see before you. At this time, I'll hand you to Melissa to walk through the details.
Yeah, Melissa Daly, Housing Program Coordinator in the Housing Services Department. So as Comey said, there are 24 units for serving people at 30% AMI or lower. Just helping you remember back to the project, it was over 6 months ago. With the 30% units are supported by the 24 project-based vouchers issued by our housing authority. Its project is also located in a DDA, or difficult to develop area, which means they received a 30% basis boost on their tax credits. There's a services partnership with SAGE for the LGBTQ community. There are amenities such as the community garden, barbecue, picnic area, and a private service delivery area and meeting space. So the reason we're here today, as Comey mentioned, is that the project has seen a severe amount of contamination that also then required remediation, and essentially the entire site was dug down to 15 feet at groundwater, the soil removed, new soils, clean soils brought in, and that cost about $1.8 million. They had a few other smaller expenses, discovering an underground spring that our caller had mentioned. So when they went to remove the prior, well, I'll get to that in 1 second. Also $410,000 of unexpected additional permitting costs for a total of $2.3 million. So properties, generally, when you're purchasing something for affordable housing like this, you do a phase 1 before you purchase the property. And that was done in 2019, and it showed that there was, in 2002, a leaking underground storage tank that was discovered on the property. And it was a 675-gallon heating oil tank that was decommissioned. There was a cleanup, and then in November 2002, the DEQ issued a closure letter. So there was no further investigation recommended in that report. So in 2019, the Phase 1 Environmental saw that 2002 report and said, well, there was something there and there was some contamination, but the DEQ said it's closed. And they did not recommend a Phase 2, which would have been further soil sampling and or drilling down to groundwater and testing the groundwater. Also, though, in July of 2019 and 2021, there were hand auger samples, test pits, dug anywhere from 4 to 8.5 feet. Those were geotechnical engineering samples that were taken, but if they had come upon contamination, they would have smelled it, tested it, and that also did not happen at these 10, 11 different sites, or test sites around the property. So in September 2022, construction started, and, well, it was June when construction started, and then in September last year that the contamination was discovered. First, when they were digging out the area where the prior contamination had been backfilled with sand, and the discovery of the natural spring, as the caller had mentioned. And so it's been a cleanup. They'd hired a remediation company, and cleanup happened for a couple months. The good news is now that all of the contamination has been removed. All confirmation results post-excavation have shown either non-detect or below regulatory risk-based concentration levels, and consequently, no further sampling or monitoring is recommended by the consultant or expected to be required by the Oregon DEQ. So that's the good news. But the bad news is the request for these additional funds, which luckily we do have a small amount of remaining Metro Bond funds, even after having gone through the second NOFA. And so that is the $749,000 request of Metro Bond funds for Opal Apartments, in addition to $500,000 of the Housing Production Opportunity Fund. They have not received an allocation for those funds in the past for this project. The developer has also looked at other sources of funding, which are listed on the PowerPoint, and received $500,000 from Business Oregon to help with the remediation and cleanup. They've also done some value engineering, increased their deferred developer fee, and also taken some funds out of their construction and soft cost contingencies. They did apply for some funds from the Oregon Health Authority to add SPMI units, or severe and persistent mental illness units, at the site, but that application was not accepted. So that is why we're here today, to try and fill this gap at the property. I will do a recap of the original of the costs of the project. Originally, the project was $21.4 million. Now it is sitting at $23.7 million. The original Metro Bond request that was granted was $5.4 million for 54 units. So as Comey had said, that's a $100,000 per unit cost for the Metro Bond. So now they're requesting an additional $749,000, and that results in a new Metro Bond per unit cost of $113,870, while the average for all of our current 10 active projects is $128,454. So we're still, still under our average, not overcommitted with Metro Bond funds in any way. I think that's about it for me. We can move forward the slide.
Take questions.
Yeah. Why did you split it into two action items, the 500 and the 740?
Well, when I looked at our prior Housing Production Opportunity Fund requests in the past, they had never appeared in a combined request with other sources of funding, and it just seemed cleaner. It's its own source of funding. We debated.
Let's see what others have. If you don't have any questions, we'd have a motion. They're taking it two different actions, one for the 749, and so that would, if there's no questions on that, I think that, yes.
Move approval, Harrington.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Was that? Yeah, I think it was.
Tree second.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear, but okay, so we had a motion and a second for the 749. And did you want to say something?
Yeah, I do want to say something. Comey, I think you and your team do a great job. But this kind of stuff drives me crazy.
Understand.
We missed this by 40+%. It's 5.4 million, or, yeah, it's 5.4 million. Is that what it is? What is it? 5.4 million that went to 7.7. And this kind of stuff gives government a bad name, quite frankly, because in the private sector, I don't know who would get sued, but there'd probably be a pretty good list. So I know that we've done our homework, and I appreciate certainly all the work, and I know we thought we'd crossed all the T's on this, and I'm gonna support the additional funds that you need from both pockets. But I just have to go on record saying, this does not bode well with me.
Yeah, there was a reliance on the phase 1 environmental study, and then the DEQ, the State Department of Environmental Quality, also said that no further action. Typically, you do a phase 2 if the phase 1
I know how that
shows
works,
all that
yeah.
contamination, but somehow they rely on the phase 1. Now, to your point, there may be a case, and we ask them to pursue it, errors and omission for the phase 1, which I think they approached us in November. And so we pursued that, and it just wasn't
Well, I'm not a big
yielding
fan
much,
of
yeah.
suing people either, but again, there's some responsibility somewhere up and down the food chain. So maybe we sue DEQ. Can we do that?
We have had a motion, we have had a second. All in favor, raise your right hand or say aye. It looks like that's unanimous. And so now we need a motion in regard to the 500,000.
Move approval, Harrington.
Okay?
Second.
There has been a motion and a second. Any comments? If not, all in favor, raise your right hand. And that looks unanimous as well. So thank you, Comey and Crowder.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
This is a suspect picture right here, too. Look at that.
I was there, I was thinking the
how
same
they
thing.
vote.
I'd say that's the responsible parties right there.
Yeah. And here's our $1 million, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go.
That's your chair and District 1 and District 2 Commissioner.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wiley.
What a bunch.
All right, well, we're now on public communication, the second opportunity, up to 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. First, we have Nikki Bonectar and William Tenson.
Okay. Thank you. We might have seen at least one of you before, so if you'd again, for the record, name and address, please.
Hello. My name is Nikki Bonectar. I live at 13865 Southwest Uplands Drive, Tigard, Oregon. I'm here today to speak about the proposed plan to appropriate American Rescue Plan Act funds in service of detention facilities like the Washington County Law Enforcement Center. ARPA funds are meant to deliver critical relief to Americans. Throughout the pandemic, I have firsthand witnessed the strife and struggle of my family, my friends, and my community. As a young person, I look around and all I see is struggle. All I see is bleakness. I do not see a future in which the majority of Americans will be resilient, and that is a governmental failure. You have an opportunity to be able to rectify that. Using ARPA funds to bolster our prison system is a misuse of our federal tax dollars, and it is absolutely unacceptable. Incarceration is a public health crisis. We know that crime originates from scarcity, stress, and oppression. As our elected officials, it is your responsibility to address those root causes of crime by using ARPA funds, by investing in community programs that have played a vital role in not only saving lives during the COVID-19 pandemic, but keeping families together and assisting folks in need. We must continue focusing our efforts on the building resilience of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Please, name and address for the record.
Hi, Commissioner. My name is William Tongtheri, and my address is 2718 Juniper Street, Forest Grove, Oregon 97116. So I have many identities. I am a business owner, I am a community interpreter, I'm a first-generation immigrant from Thailand, I am queer, I am Asian American, and I am a young person. And I'm speaking to you today in opposition of the proposed plan to appropriate the American Rescue Plan dollars to prison and detention facility. And these facility, one of the facility include the Washington County Law Enforcement Center. I was shocked when I learned that over 40 million of our tax dollar was proposed to improve jail facility and being appropriated to HVAC improvement. Commissioner, the American Rescue Plan was written to deliver critical relief to American people, and I believe that there's so many more ways we can appropriate these funding to community who have been impacted by the pandemic. And Commissioner Jerry, like, you're my commissioner, and I just listened to you talking about how, you know, government is having a bad rap when we are like spending money, and that was like $1 million. This is 40 times more than that, and I think it's very important for us to be more intentional about where we are spending this money. And, you know, communities are struggling, and there's many more ways these funds could be spent. These funds, you know, like community-based organizations that is helping communities, they need these funds, and there's a better way than spending it on there's a better way than spending it on something that should have been accounted for already. I want to add to that, incarceration itself is a public health crisis. We know that, like my friend here said, crime originates from poverty, scarcity, and stress. Commissioner, you have a unique opportunity to address the root cause of these problems using the American Rescue Plan Act, funding community-based organization, community program that play important role in helping community who are disproportionately impacted by the pandemic in recovering. I believe there is better use of these federal funds than going to incarceration and going to HVAC improvement.
Does that conclude your remarks?
No, not yet.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for.
Sorry.
Oh, you do have
I'm
one.
not done yet. I just need some time to kind of gather my thoughts a little bit. In closing remark, commissioners, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to speak today, and I hope that all of you will reconsider about how American Rescue Plan Act money is being appropriated. And I hope that you think about our community and you think about me, my mom, business owners, restaurant owners, people who help pay taxes and help contribute to our society. we need help, and we need you to speak up for us. Please oppose how the funding is right now, and please reconsider appropriating $40 million to detention facilities. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for coming tonight. Kevin?
Next, we have Marcus Mundy, and this one I'll make one last call for anyone else left in the room. If you'd like to provide comment, to please join Mr. Mundy at the table. And then we'll move to the 3 online, and that will conclude us for tonight.
You're not tired, are you, Marcus?
No. I'm happy to be here. I raced up here from Salem so I could be in the room with you gentlemen. So thank you very much. My name is Marcus Mundy. My address, I think, is 624 Southwest Trillium Creek Terrace in District 2 of Washington County, unincorporated Washington County, Commissioner Treese's district. I have lots to say. I won't get it all out tonight, but I promise I'll reach out to each one of you 5 commissioners in the days following this meeting. And let me just start off by saying I respect all 5 of you, so just want that on the record. The last time I was in this room, it was to pass, with a 5-0 vote, an ordinance creating the position of Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. That was in February of 2020, and then COVID struck and everything happened and changed the world for all of us. And it was at that time that I had a lot of hope for Washington County, because they had made a promise. You 5 commissioners, 4 made that vote that are on this commission right now. They made a promise to Washington County and a commitment that their decisions would be groomed and tailored and decided with equity and inclusion and other items, but equity and inclusion built into the decision makings. But I'm here tonight to add my voice to the cacophony of opposition I heard to the Board of County Commissioners' intended pathway of seizing the lion's share of the $58 million in Tranche 2 of the federal ARPA COVID relief funds for the retrofitting and upgrading of the jails and the correctional facilities, and other needs, of course, but at least that's the intent that I heard. I did listen to almost all of the work session today, and that's what I heard when I listened to that. And I have to say that individually, on behalf of my organizations, yes, but as a citizen of Washington County, I'm disappointed, I'm chagrined, I'm dismayed, I feel betrayed, because I don't think it was in the spirit or the intent of the ARPA relief funds to be used in the way that they're being used, that they're proposed to being used, what I heard this afternoon. And I've spent some time between this afternoon and now, kind of familiarizing myself with the definition of resilience and economic resilience, because I heard that word used by several commissioners and in the presentation, resilience. And I looked it up, and I don't know, in the words of Inigo Montoya, I don't think that word means what you think it means, because what I read said that resilience was for the longevity of the community, that it said that it was for specific disasters as COVID was, and I was trying to figure out how we contorted ourselves to make the jails HVAC fit that model. So I didn't satisfy myself with that, and I have more thinking to do, but I'll work with anybody who wants to work with me on that. The other thing is that it seems to me true resilience comes from developing the people and the communities of Washington County and using those as the resources that you use the funding for to help make Washington County stronger. And honestly, I don't think it's too late. I know you have an April date to make decisions, but I know I also heard at this afternoon's meeting that perhaps an amendment could be forwarded, from community. And I think there's an opportunity for you 5 commissioners to use an amendment or some reconsideration to kind of strike a more, I think, balanced and proper balance of using this 58, and actually if you count the 10 or 12 million from the first tranche, maybe 70 million worth of dollars, to strike a better balance of, yes, patching a hole in the budget. I understand that jails have to be fixed, air conditioning has to work, but you could strike a balance between patching a hole for some things that are long overdue and long overlooked at the county, and then keeping that promise that I talked about to community at that you made in February of 2020 about inclusion and equity. I think that would be, dare I say it, a more equitable use of these funds if you reconsidered and looked at the balance. So I have a whole bunch more stuff scribbled here, but that's essentially what I wanted to say, and I thank you for the opportunity of letting me say it this evening. Thank you.
Kevin,
All right, we'll move to our online, and we just have two left. So the first one is Red Wortham. Red, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you and good evening. Red Wortham, address 2333 Heather Way, Forest Grove, Oregon. I appreciate your attention to my concern and incredulity that you are planning to use $38 million of ARPA funding to upgrade the jail HVAC system. That is 66% of the second wave of funding for less than 1% of our county's population. And that use does not even assist that 1% from recovering from the pandemic. This decision disregards the vast majority of the more than 600,000 constituents whom you represent collectively in this county. It disregards the spirit and intent of the Treasury's rules for use of the funding, and it flies in the face of your published values and principles for allocating this funding. Let's be clear, the federal government gave Washington County $117 million of fiscal recovery funds. Did you hear those words? Fiscal recovery funds. So that you, the representatives we elected to represent us, can respond to the pandemic and its economic effects and build a stronger, more equitable economy during the recovery. Those are the words of the Treasury Department in describing the intent for this money. You now have the responsibility to decide what to do with the final $58 million intended to help the people of Washington County recover from the impacts of the coronavirus. You published a dashboard for all of us to see how you're using our money. You proclaimed a set of values and principles within which you would operate to govern the use of our money to help us recover from the impacts of COVID. You told us you would value equity. You told us you would value changing persistent systemic issues and achieving a more inclusive future. You told us you would value resilience, fostering strong organizations and systems that focus on long-term solutions. You told us you would value collaboration, working together to achieve better outcomes. And you told us you would value good governance, being responsible stewards of public trust and resources. Yet here we are, trying to shine light on seemingly sneaky tactics to allocate funding without collaboration and communication, without fostering long-term solutions, and without valuing inclusivity or changing persistent systemic issues. The Treasury's final rule gives near 450 pages of guidance on how you are permitted to use our recovery funds. This guidance makes it very clear that the money is not intended to simply enrich the county, plug holes in the budget, pad the county's budget, nor address higher county costs. It's also not for issues from before COVID. There's guidelines on how to consider best uses of the funding. In this case, I can only imagine that you're attempting to justify the use of $38 million for the jail HVAC system by categorizing it as a public health impact by supporting prevention in a congregate living facility. However, the guidance demonstrates that an analysis of public health issues should occur by first identifying the public health impact, then identifying if the impact is to a specific business, nonprofit, or groups, and then finally designing the response that addresses the impact. The jail's HVAC system has been in place 25 years, during which time the end of life was known and anticipated. It is the sheriff's legal responsibility to budget appropriately for his legally required duty of maintaining the jail. However, again, the board is considering allocating excessive funding to the sheriff's office to make up for their failure to perform their legal duties. How does the board intend to justify the jail HVAC as preventing or mitigating COVID impact? Research has shown that the efficacy of HVAC systems to reduce spread of COVID is unknown. In fact, studies have shown that the virus has been found on return air ducts, return air grills, and HVAC filters. The jail already has a reverse airflow system that they can change the direction of airflow with the flip of a switch. They already use all of the toolbox strategies for preventing spread of COVID in the jail, which includes physical distancing, wearing face masks, hand hygiene, and vaccination. So it seems that you are choosing to use 2/3 of our money to bail out the sheriff's office for failing to plan very predictable needs while disguising the purpose as a COVID precaution for less than 1% of Washington County's population. I remind you that in 2020, I asked you to ask the sheriff to demonstrate his need for his budget request at that time to provide take-home cars to every patrol supervisor. He testified to you at the time that, quote, it is an operational necessity because they respond from home. You did not seek that accountability from him. And when I submitted a public records request for the number of patrol supervisors, not including the tactical team supervisor, who had ever responded from home in an entire 1-year period, the response was none, not one single time. Yet that money was prioritized over staffing for shortages in the jail. Then when the sheriff asked for a state-of-the-art training center, despite existing training centers within the county and existing venues for specialized training, you gave him over $20 million. And he ended up spending over $23 million on that training center. And the benefits are still minimal to the public in this county. Today, I'm imploring you to do the right thing. Allocate the fiscal recovery funds to our communities and marginalized communities in ways that will actually help us to recover from the ongoing impacts of COVID, mental health, and housing.
Thank you, Kevin. Who's next?
The last person we have is Sushmita Podar. Sushmita, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Board of Commissioners. My name is Sushmita Podar. My address is 7393 Northeast Cherry Drive, Hillsboro, Oregon 97124. I'm the founder of Washco Rising, entrepreneur, small business owner, artist, and serve the community as the Washington County Planning Commissioner, and also serve on 20 other diverse boards and committees across city, county, and state. I have also completed more than 4,000 hours in community work during the last 3 years during the pandemic, engaging, learning, working, and connecting directly with the community and witnessing their circumstances firsthand, including myself, including dealing with the daily stress and trauma this pandemic has brought to my life, to my business, and to people I associate with. I have sat down many times to write what I want to say, and every time anger and frustration takes over, so I'm forced to stop myself. But I'm going to allow myself to feel those emotions because for the last 3 years, people working in the government sector and elected people have made us beg for every little thing. I repeat that. You have made us beg for every little thing. It feels like a never-ending cycle of repeated trauma that is being dumped on us continuously. We, the civic leaders, community-based organizations, we do all this hard work of bringing you data and stories. That means repeating trauma on ourselves by telling you our stories again and again, and we continue to hear words of assurance, and then the government turns around and forgets we ever said anything. How many more times should we repeat ourselves? I'm here today to ask all of you a question. Under your watch, if any county employee misappropriated the funds that were supposed to be utilized for another purpose, what would the consequences be for that employee? Would that employee be questioned, terminated, or be allowed to get away without consequence? Similarly, the use of ARPA funds that have been given to the county for our health and economic development impacted by the pandemic, we, the community, advocated for. We advocated for those funds is now being considered for something we did not ask for, nor do we want. It's our taxpayer money, and we elected all of you to put that money to use for us. We assigned you the responsibility of using that money appropriately for direct community support so that we can live, we can survive, and possibly thrive emerging from this pandemic, which at this moment is an impossible dream because most of us are struggling to make our basic needs met. We did not ask you to do whatever you want with it and use this one-time funding for making jails more resilient, which we know impacts Black and Brown communities disproportionately. You said it too, multiple times. Are we denying it now? We are unable to pay rent. Housing vouchers for impacted communities literally have a 60-month, that is 5-year wait. Myself, including thousands of us, are having to figure out how we are going to meet rent as they go up by 14% this year. Where is the support for that? Why are you so determined to make us stress out about eviction and possible houselessness? Is this what you mean by supporting housing? We are unable to pay for food, more so since there is massive inflation brought on to us by the pandemic, climate change, and Congress cutting food stamp benefits for community. We are unable to access healthcare as most doctors are not accepting OHP and people are not able to afford treatment for issues that require thousands of dollars. Small business owners have no access to healthcare. I had to travel across the world after waiting for 2 years to get diagnosis for critical diseases that were about to take my life. Let's not even talk about circumstances of mental health that was brought about and exacerbated by the pandemic, the loss of lives, family, business, jobs. Domestic abuse victims continue to live in dangerous circumstances because they have nowhere to go and receive wraparound service to help them be independent. Our county is still a transit desert with fragmentation of people that are being forced to live on the fringes because our county is getting more and more expensive for people to live. 500,000 or so people have to live on the fringes. In fact, I'm unable to be a mother and adopt my child because it is going to cost $60,000 that I don't have for adoption. You see, the county used the shoulders of small businesses to get funds and then forgot about us. In 2020, I was supposed to put in my, I was supposed to deposit the funds for adoption. The 2020 brought about the pandemic. My child is probably somewhere out there in this community.
Your
probably
time is up. Thank you for your
just give me
testimony.
10 seconds, please. Probably houseless, probably hungry, probably going to fall into the grips of crime. So are you preparing to make the jails more resilient for my child that is probably going to be fall into the clutches of crime? So could you please instead allow me to find my child, educate my child, feed my child, house my child? Can you invest the money in my child in prevention versus punitive? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Kevin, that concludes. Great, thank you. Our next item, just to tell you about our schedule on the 28th.
Can I just make a comment to that?
We don't normally do that. But
I know. Not one person has identified how we're supposed to pay for this if we give away all the money. So it's an ask, but not a solution. So I get a little tired of that because we're supposed to create the money and give it away. So bring us solutions. Stop telling us you just want the money because we have responsibilities.
Thank you. Our upcoming meeting calendar on Tuesday, the 28th of March, we have a canceled meeting for spring break. And then on Tuesday, the 4th, we're back in session with our normal work session board meeting. We also have a Housing Authority board. And then on the 6th, we have a Clean Water Service Board of Directors training. And then I could read it all to you, but you could look online. We have a work session on the 11th, and on the 18th, we have a work session board meeting, and on the 25th, work session board meeting. Any final comments from the board? I'll take a motion to adjourn. It's been a very long day since about 2 o'clock today.
So move.
All right, is there a second? Thank you. I have to say, one final comment, and that is the chair is sitting at 12:30 in the morning. You have the stamina. Boy, that's a real something else. All right, I have a motion, I have a second. All in favor of adjourning, say aye, raise your hand. We're adjourned. Good night now.